What's up, guys? Welcome to our very first broadcast here on the Apex Legends Global Series Preseason Qualifier. Today, Jay How, we are going to be covering EMEA. This is the European teams that we don't get to see too often here on this side, but we'll be doing them justice nonetheless as they fight for that top spot, fight for their way into pro.
Yeah, for us here in the States, of course, different time zones, but as you and I over the weekend, we were messaging back and forth, watching these teams, trying to see how this was going to unfold. Of course, there's some surprises that didn't make it in, and there were some new faces that did make it in. So there's a lot that we're going to be able to talk about today, but of course, in the forthcoming weeks to cover all of these teams and all of this action. And I know you and I think we've probably gotten a little less sleep and a little less social time and a lot more Apex time, which I'm excited that we get to kick things off. The very first team that's not invited will find their way into the Pro League after today. These next 4 weeks, 4 out of the next 5 weeks are going to be huge for some of these teams.
Yeah, let's take a look at that. For any new viewers that are just tuning into the finals today, I want to take a moment, break down the format, get a chance to see how these people can make it to pro. Because right now you can see in the middle of your screen the gray Pro League split #1. That's what we're aiming for right now. We've already got invited teams that you can see on the left, and right below it in black, that's where we are right now. You said it yourself. 4 weeks of preseason qualifiers. This is only the first one. And that means, in a weird way, that we're getting the cream of the crop.
Yeah, I mean, this right now is going to set up the entire next 4 weeks that we're going to have of these teams, is because all of the best teams are going to be making it here. And then, of course, we've got more to talk about with the points and how you accumulate points for the other teams. But it means that if the team doesn't win today, you're going to see a lot of familiar faces throughout the next few weeks. And D, I can't wait till we get really digging into some of this, because EMEA and NA, there's some surprises that did not make it into today, which we'll have a lot to talk about, but I am excited to see who's going to be our first one in.
Yeah, I mean, we've got the chance to see things that are already quite, I'm looking for the word, I want to say upsetting, but it's not exactly that. There is a lot of potential for upsets, and that alone can be seen in the semifinals. If you had the chance to tune into those, a big team in Europe, major pushers that I was expecting to make it into the finals today, didn't, and we've got a lot of big names right alongside them. For those of you that may not have seen the semis, that may not be tuned in the Liquipedia, let's take a look at just the list of teams that we've got for today, because we have got, like you said, some very familiar names. To me, Bear Claw and Kick, they're the really big ones that are sticking out there, even top dogs.
Yeah, Bear Claw is probably the one, and the biggest part about Bear Claw is that they kind of barely made it in, and that is the team that I think I know personally have had the pleasure of seeing their evolution and a lot of what they've done. So the fact that they were 10th in, they actually tied, and they barely got in their lobby, that's a big statement. I look for them to rebound, but teams that are surprising and coming up and just kind of really exploding. 69 IQ, a team that won 2 games, finished second in 2 other games. I mean, when you can put up 2 first places and two second place finishes in 4 out of your 6 games, that's a major statement coming into the finals today.
Yeah, and aside from those 2, I've also got my eyes on 2 other teams that we may not hear that much, and I want to draw attention to them just so we can keep our eyes on them. Australis, coming in today, is a very interesting team that had their first break into my eyes, at the very least, in Blast Titans. I really enjoyed watching them there as the season has sort of developed throughout the past couple months. But to bring up the rear, Succubus as well is a team that has a lot of history behind it. Not in the sense that these players individually have a lot of history, though some of them might, but that if you look at the players that come through the Succubus roster, a lot of them go on to a lot of other big teams. Kick, definitely one of them. Congarna EU, yet another. So I'm curious to see if Succubus has continued that keen eye that they have for picking up talent and have yet another roster that could blow us out of the water.
Yeah, I think one of the cool things about the Apex scene is that we're entering our 2nd season of ALGS, but if anybody's been around esports at all, we know that there was a lot of grassroots stuff that began in 2019 before ALGS even existed. So we've seen a lot of these names for quite some time, And now that we've got the ultimate proving grounds and ALGS Season 2 having a different way in, it now is time to say, is that rich history going to back you up and push you forward into that? And a team like Succubus, if teams have been following around or players have been following around, they know that name. But if not, well, you're going to get familiar with a lot of those names starting today. So these are teams. We'll try and do our best to kind of keep you up to date on a lot of these names that have been around for a long time. ALGS Season 1 was one thing, but Season 2 is even bigger. And right now there's a lot better opportunities for teams to get in. So I think now the field is wide open. As this weekend, there were so many teams, by the way, that it was so hard to keep track of everything. Even Nick Merckx getting involved, I think, was a big story for a lot of people. But there is a lot of these names. There's a reason why they're here on Monday, because they've been around and they know how to do it.
Yeah, I had an absolutely crazy day. I think it was the first day of the qualifiers with so many games going on. I had tabs everywhere and was just like, I was moving tabs to try and be like, okay, these guys are in the same game, these guys are in the same game. Now we're swapping between them. I was going beautiful mind out here. But you talked about experience, and that's the thing that I think we can really latch onto, because experience is something that I think in preseason qualifiers could potentially hurt you. And feel free to depart from that, but I think that the pace of the games here is oddly a lot faster than what a lot of teams are expecting to experience in Pro League, and that's definitely caught some people off guard.
Yeah, I mean, look, the sentiment for a lot of teams that have been around the block for a long time, when you have the less experienced players come in, things are a lot more disruptive and a lot different than I think what you would normally see for some of these teams that have been around for a while. We are here on Monday, so we do expect, I don't want to say better quality games, but a different style of games, if you will, a slower pace, a more reserved pace. And I think that's what we're going to get here as it's time, Dia.
Oh, mama, we're dropping into World's Edge. First game of the day, 6 games to follow, where you have to accumulate the most points in order to be declared the winner, in order to get your spot in Pro League. And as the bus drops everybody off in their landing spots, we know a few of them, but we get to know the rest. Expecting Kick to go to Lava City, and I'm expecting Bear Claw to end up in Geyser, where as we can see, they're already contested.
Yeah, Geyser, this has been their home for quite some time. And when we've seen them in the past, they have won a lot of these matchups, and they know how to do that. It's not like they've not been contested here. Where some of these teams, they're going to find places where they don't get contested. And it is Succubus, that team we were mentioning earlier. So Bearclaw is familiar with being contested at Geyser. We'll see if they can hold up, because right now it looks like these teams are circling towards each other.
Succubus pretty eager to fight, even with the P2020 is not something that I would do, but you know what? That's the difference that we get between me and the pro levels. I think it's one of many, as old as forever. Gonna be on the receiving end of an arc star. Needs to get his way out to safety. You can't afford to drop a member just yet, and Succubus are trying to play this slow and controlled.
Yeah, but they're also trying to move in. As you can see with the PK, they want to close the distance. You've got Flatline PK on the other, but on the other side, Bearclaw, they've got themselves a Volt and a Mastiff, and here's an outside view as these teams starting to move in towards each other. It's all about finding some head peaks, finding in these grates, the windows, or opening these doors. And the minute you get that one crack, you're looking for it. If you're on the other end and you've got the Bloodhound, you're playing off the scans. And when you get that information, that's going to be the first knock right there. So it looks like Bearclaw going to get the first one. It looks like a couple people knocked now.
Yeah, two knocks makes it some cleanup, and that purple shield and blue shield, really interesting pivots on which the game relies right now. Roger Bodger poking his way up over the top. Paradise is playing the shield, has a lot of sustain here, but it doesn't look like it's gonna be quite enough. Pulls out the RE45, but gets knocked out, and Bearclaw gotta think twice about landing Geyser next game.
Yeah, it's always going to be difficult when you become contested on what is your familiar drop spot. And we mentioned the pacing being one thing of games, but also your landing spots. You are so used to being in a controlled environment against other pro teams that everybody knows where everybody drops, and rarely is anybody contested. But that's what happens today, is that you've got a mix of all these different teams. So how can you determine where it's going to be? So this is a sign of what is to come, I think, in future games for Bearclaw, and they'll readjust and try and figure out how to deal with this going forward.
Yeah, we got a lot of action happening right now. Our observers highlighting some of it as Respawn ship is going to come in. There's already a lot of interesting rotations bringing people into Geyser, though. So as early in the round as this may be, Respawn is deceptively not safe at all because there are so many people in the area. We've already seen Clean rotate all the way through Geyser to try and get to what is a relatively southeastern circle.
Yeah, you've always got these different play styles, and depending on where you land, if you're a Skyhook team, you know you're going to be in late. If you're somebody like Dead Inside, you're already south, so you're just trying to survey the area, try and find some real estate. So they're going to take to the sky with Valkyrie, figure out where they're going to go. And we're going to see a lot of teams park and take some of this real estate. Also, by the way, in about a day's time, that whole area is going to look a lot different. So we'll see how that shakes up in future weeks. I believe we'll be sticking to one map here. However, in other tournaments, it is going to be fun to see how teams do adapt in the future. But they are going to park themselves in, grab them some real estate, and play for that late game.
You know, I always think it's interesting, and I'm really happy that we're getting a little bit of a new POI in that area with Rampart Town, because Lava City, in pubs at the very least, not something that gets landed on all too often. It's something that you see almost exclusively in pro play, with teams that like to play edge, landing around Lava City, who are comfortable pushing in from far distances. But for the most part, there aren't a whole lot of rings that close around there, and the ones that do end up being very chaotic with so many buildings there.
Yeah, you either have the ones down right around Lava City or the rings that are where the new Rampart takeover is going to be. And right now, there's not a lot of cover in that northern part of the Lava City POI. There will be soon. So that is going to be fun to see in the future. But right now, we've got some teams here loading up. It's going to be Borgir getting use of the crafter here right in the middle of frags. So they'll have an easy rotation in. But as we get a look, we now have Kick in that lone building that you mentioned. They're going to be hoping that that zone pulls to them later in the game.
Yeah, and it's interesting as well because Kick haven't chosen to run somebody with scans. They aren't running a Seer, they aren't running a Bloodhound, and instead have some pretty heavy mobility. But in a way, this lobby is kind of inconvenient for them because they haven't had to rotate very far. The circle is pulling almost right next door to where they landed. So this Valkyrie, this Octane, haven't had the chance to pay off yet. And I think that they're hoping as much as we do that things get much more fast-paced, much more quickly, because that's the zone that Kick has always excelled in.
Yeah, there's different teams that will definitely do better by having early activity. Some teams don't like to just sit around and wait. You don't get your gun game warmed up. You can rest assured these teams were all warming up and practicing beforehand, but it's much different here. We also did get a look just now, Dia, at our team's 69 IQ. Most points in the qualifiers coming in through the semifinals. They're going to be one of the later teams to rotate out, coming from that Northwest Trials area. They are fully kitted. Wouldn't be surprised if we might see them get in a fight on their way in on that rotation in. But in these lobbies, as we mentioned before, much slower, so less likely to have those breakout fights. But if they do happen, they are on those fringe, on the outer edges of the zone.
And for people who are saying, oh, it's much slower, but, you know, where's the actual evidence of that? The evidence is on your screens right now. Only 18 squads remain, and I say only 18 squads when we started with 19, and it's still round 1. There's only been one fight that we've kept track of so far. Everything else has been rotations, has been who are these teams, but the fact is that everybody is avoiding fights because each of these 6 games are so ridiculously important that going out with 0 points can honestly mess up your chances at even that last game qualifying you.
Yeah, we do hear quite a bit of shots in the distance, including a Jibby ult, so that could be defensive, that could just be a wave, but we actually see some sky trails now as we have an aerial view of our teams. That's going to be tunnel, as it might be contested. There's a bubble down, and teams trying to take over some of these buildings. You mentioned, I mean, even these buildings, the big building, the zip building here on the left, you can coexist in these areas. So these could become a lot more hectic as this closes in, but Jibby ults are going down aplenty. So we've got our teams just kind of crouching and stand behind. That is not safe for long. It's safe for now, but safe for how much longer?
It's I really like Lava City rings. I think we talked about this before, or rather we alluded to it, but just with the birthday caking that you can get up top in these buildings here, you can have a team on every single level of a building, and so often when we get to final circles, that's exactly what it is. But because we've only got the first round closing, and because it's inside the second, there's still the chance for this to move away. There's still the chance for this to become what you and I know will be a Rampart Town ring, and it looks like that's where we're pulling as we're going a little bit further north into no man's land.
One thing I noticed there, I know there's a lot of action here, but 69 IQ, the team that rotated all the way from Trials, they're just balloon hopping. They balloon hopped from Harvester going down to that one just to the west of Lava Siphon. They're going to keep balloon hopping until they get in. They understand that when they get here, it's going to be very difficult. So we do have some action breaking out here on the southeast side of things here in Lava City. The amount of Jibby ults that I've seen this early in the game, I think that speaks to the tension and how important real estate is for these teams to get in. You don't normally see all these breaking out quite so quickly, but these teams are, I'd say, probably pretty tense right now to start our day.
Yeah, it's such a long cooldown to be expending, but also it's so punishing to be on the receiving end of that. It's sort of a game of chicken when things like that go down. When you see a team pushing you, do you go, well, we can win this fight, and we're just gonna take that chance right now, or do you say, hey, well, we're actually likely not going to take this 50-50 where the other team may be better looted, and instead find ourselves our own little bit of real estate elsewhere. We can do that, and that's something that we're seeing exemplified again and again. Interestingly enough, though, we talk about that loot. Dead Inside, they're one of those teams not having the problem. They're one of the few that run the Loba.
Loba is such an interesting take. It's great in these moments, of course, when you can just kind of, somebody dies, it's like, all right, we got a free upgrade. We didn't even have to fight for it. So that does happen. It is very unique, I would say. It's not something, I mean, I wouldn't even say you get one per lobby. It's just, it's a very specific thing for very specific teams. Now, here's something to look for. Succubus, they are going into the lion's den right now. I mean, where do you possibly go? Everybody sees you coming in. They're going to land and try and get a head peek, but my goodness, they are going to be out in the open. Oldest Forever is being targeted there, so they are trying to make their way in. That's one of those buildings that you can coexist in. They barely made it in. Oldest Forever sitting at about 20 HP. They're gonna make it in, and sometimes you just gotta ult the roof, make sure that nobody can peek you, and that's what the Jibby ult does. It is the ultimate let's move in, but they're not out of the woods yet. There's gonna have one go down.
That down is big, and it should let both teams finish one off, but with the down being responded to, it's going to be the fight for their lives as Succubus try and keep their way inside this building, but now genuinely have to go head-to-head. An EMP destroys everything, though, as there could be a third party up right now. Gibby Bubble going down afterwards cannot be destroyed. 2 downs, and Mun has to run for his life. Grube sitting under the stairs right now, popping the shield cell. It's going to be likely leaving his teammate to die, though the portal takes him out to safety, and we're going to get a quite clean disengage with still 2 members following, and Rube having to go back in to try and fight off Succubus by himself.
Well, I tell you what, this right here, I mean, normally these teams go in, but they knew that they were down, they were weak, and when they came in, so there's a lot of action going on in this building, and you know if you can take over this building, you'll have the loot, you'll have the KP, and you'll have ultimate positioning going into the next round. So definitely a lot of teams fighting it out here. Oldest Forever got back up. Succubus somehow managing to survive in this situation. Teams flying all over the place just trying to get in.
And as we were talking about that, as we were looking at the third party, it's worth mentioning that up on top of the building, the team that was putting that pressure on was Eternal. They did ridiculously well yesterday, coming out with what I believe was one of the first place spots. And oh my lord, that piling in the buildings. They are in arguably the prime spot to take control of it, all the way in the northwestern corner.
With this coming in, I mean, you're either going to have it pull to Lava City, you're going to have it pull to the east side part, or that L-shaped building that a lot of people do hold on to. And if it is more on that northeast side, that's the wide open one. And that's when you're going to see, going from round 3 to round 4, you will see a lot of teams drop. We have 16 teams left here. By the time zone 4 starts and zone 3 is ending, you're going to see that probably go down, maybe even to single digits. So if you're looking for action, look for it between zone 3 and 4. However, if it does pull down towards Lava City, it means that there's going to be more cover for a lot of these teams. If it pulls north, totally different story. This is going to be really, really exciting for one of these teams. And up top here, we've got G-Dolphin, we've got Clean. They're the team that are up here. They're going to be fully engaged, looking for a fight, and that's going to be brought to them.
Ooh, with the Eva getting it down as well. G-Dolphin now needs to find cover in the face of this Gibraltar ult. Bubble goes down outside the building. That's not going to be interrupted either. 16 squads remain. A double Gibraltar ultimate I think we saw there. So there's a lot of teams with their eyes on this building right outside of Geyser. We'll see how many more squads lose their lives. Right now, it seems like nobody's actually committing to the fight.
Yeah, there was a nice retreat from Clean. They've taken back over that building. And a lot of times you'll see teams try and play out in that cover, and depending on which legend you're on, you can get away with doing those things. So there's a lot of ways to get there. We're getting an eye. We know the aerial view has been quite abundant here. We're trying to get that fixed for you all behind the scenes. Right now, we'll keep things out in the sky. So right now, we're getting a nice, good view. This is great, and we get a good idea of where the placements are. But we're 30 seconds away from the zone going down.
Taking the scenic route, much like Red Dragon are trying to get inside of that next ring, but there's a bunch of teams piled up, and with 20 seconds left to go, you said it yourself, J-How, the action is going to start right around now, when you do have to cover what can be an immense amount of ground, especially for teams that were on the outside, like Chichivicha, like Red Dragon, that haven't quite found themselves a home yet. They're still on the outside, and now could be punished by a zone that's going to drag them out of that cover.
Here we go. That's going to be the Mastiff coming out. That's going to be Odin Gamers. At least we're switching back and forth. I believe they were the winners of that. Meanwhile, here's one of those teams in the tunnel. So poking your head out of here, and they do have a Valkyrie. Whether they have an ult, I mean, at this point, getting an ult this late into the game is going to be difficult because there's not going to be any landing spots. But they are down to 2 members, so coming out of that tunnel, they might just have to poke there, wait for that next zone to close, and just try and play for placements, get any type of, you know, back shots on people, try and third party where they can. And here's Dead inside with that Loba ult, and my goodness, they have a whole floor now. They've got their own little vault in this building.
L-Star plus Loba ult is just a laser for all time, and a lot of these Lobas have been picking that up as well. That's why you see energy ammo just littering the floor, because they can burn through it very quickly, but the lasers from long range, J-How, you and I have been talking about it for so long, and it's very clearly paying off for some of these teams to be able to get that damage farm in. As GG, they go on an aggressive push under this bridge.
Yeah, they're trying to finish this up. The EVA shots, they already had one down. They're going to go through, get behind that knock shield, so GG will get that. They also are the kill leaders, so at least 5 KP. Don't know their total, but that is a nice pickup for them. And we did get a look at the next circle, Dia. That is going to be pulling closer to Lava City. So the team that we saw in the tunnel, they're going to be okay. The teams in the northern part of Lava City, in those 3-story, 4-story buildings, they're going to be okay. But all the teams that are on the northern end here, they're going to have to play in around the dome. There are head peaks galore around the rocks. However, there aren't enough for all of these teams. So look for these teams to look for a fight. The problem that you have here on the north side, Dia, is you have 3 teams here, 2 in the building, 1 has to come in. You do not want to be the first to fight. Heck, you might even want to just rotate in and let them fight it out so you don't have to be a part of it. And it looks like that bubble push is coming in. Dolphin's going to be the one to call that out. Let's see whether Clean decides to try and force this fight, try and pick somebody off, or whether they just kind of let them rotate through. This is the big one, is that you don't want to be first, but if it's going to be forced upon you, you've got to figure out what your goal is. And it looks like they're going to give up space in that building, but there's still a whole lot more to be determined between these 3 teams.
I really like this move as well, because we talked about the high risk that comes with taking these fights, and while taking up a lot of space is good, while controlling a lot of space is good, spreading your resources too thin is definitely a big thing that these teams have to be wary of. And defending this push, even the fact that the Wraith Portal gets used around the side, these teams never had an intention of fighting. It's just all about, sure, live and let live for right now.
Wow, this is an aggressive one. This could just be for scouting. It could be for positioning. Around the dome, you can see even under the bridge, these are key areas where teams can play that don't have cover under buildings. But even under the train tracks, there's going to be teams poking it out from the train yard. Meanwhile, Kick is going to use the high ground here. They're going to land up here. Remember, this is changing in the patch tomorrow. I don't know if it'll be changed for these official rules, but that is going to go from 30 to 15 seconds soon. But where are they going to go from here? They've got to get some nades, got to get something. They're jumping down. They're going on the roof here.
Oh my lord, I've never seen a push like so ridiculously aggressive without Caustic, without Gibraltar ults coming down. Finally it goes, but it seems like it's a little bit too late. May still have done the job though, as the EMP follows it up, and the dome, the patience on that dome may very well have saved the team all the way on top here. Kick on that aggressive push. Seems like they've made it work and wrestled push from Eternal.
Boy, that is knowing the lobby and knowing what heroes exist, what legends exist to save that bubble for after the EMP. That is a major, major play. That is something that you don't always see a crypto in the lobby. So normally you just kind of go up there, throw a bubble, but the discipline and the timing of that was perfect, as Kick now has made it in. And now we do have multiple tiers here, including the Caustic team, which is going to be oppressive to push from Succubus.
This Caustic, his value is so high in these scenarios because endgame it can get kind of iffy, everybody's shooting at you anyway, but right here, right now, in these last couple circles, he makes it an impossible zone to push into, quite literally, albeit, as some of these barrels are blocking doors as well that now cannot be opened by teams desperate to get inside of the next zone, whereas Roger Bodger, he can sit out here, toss barrels in, throw in L-star shots, do whatever he likes to get the damage farm in.
Boy, I cannot wait for this zone to close. I mean, this is going to be absolute chaos because not all of these buildings are going to be in, and if so, they're going to barely be in. So things are going to get real tight, real squeezed, as you can see now. The lower part of Dome, but the buildings here, the one building basically to look over everybody. You got to imagine there was one crazy zone yesterday I saw in NA during one of Benchwarmer's game where the zone pulled onto the staircase in that building. It's something that I don't know if I've really seen, but it was pretty crazy the way that ended up. Meanwhile, GG, they're going to be focusing on the team coming from the tunnel. The odds of them making it in going to be almost none, down to 9 teams left, but GG is still sitting as kill leader. They're the ones that have the most points so far and are now securing a top 8 spot.
A lone Gibby all the way outside, the focus of a lot of squads right now, should have been taken down. We got a chance to look at that northern end, and you would have seen Signal Lunaire being the only team in the north right now, outside of one member right next to them that really wants to stay alive for as long as possible. We've made it into the points section now. In the top 8, you do get rewarded simply for making it there, but it's that extra KP that comes with the end that'll really push you to that top spot.
Well, I tell you, Kick really getting some shots down. Want to go ahead and confirm some of these kills. We're down to 21 players left with 8 squads, so 3 members out. Here's going to be one of our teams playing on the dome side of things. So for these teams out on the outer side, they don't have near as much to contend with. They just don't have as much cover, which can be a blessing in disguise. I mean, this building, I mean, look how many people are here, Dia.
It's the birthday cake. It's literally, it's all I wanted for my birthday. And I am so ridiculously happy to see this happening once again, because we've been talking about zones closing over and over, but when it forces you out of that building eventually, man, oh man, is it sweet. And there's a very good chance that it does, as we're going to find out where next ring is going in a few short seconds. Everybody's still struggling for position. Morning Stars also holding up north. We got a chance to check in with those teams once again. Signal Lunaire and Morning Stars are being able to, theoretically, depending on where this next ring closes, just throw pot shots into the teams that are having to stream out of this building to pick up kills when nobody else can afford to shoot the people around them.
Well, here we go. Things closing in, down to 7 teams. Kick with the crazy rotation in. They're trying to get the shot. That's going to be a Wraith. Just, I mean, that there. You kind of feel bad. Morning Stars, there's nowhere to go. Everywhere is taken. Meanwhile, we'll switch back to the building. It is all full squad, 6 teams, 18 players left. Jibby Ult coming out. It looks like the team coming in from Dome, they're trying to find their way into this building, and they are going to be met with resistance, as that's going to be down 1 member for Signa. And it's going to be the Jibby Ult. Bubble already comes down.
Watch
they're going to bubble
EMP.
their way forward, but man, I tell you, I don't even know. I think they're going to save the EMP for when it matters, but right now, their Jibby Ult's going down. There it is, and oh my goodness.
2 bubbles gone off of that EMP alone, now taking damage from their Jibby ultimate, from somebody else's. It doesn't matter, the damage is everywhere. Dead Inside saved theirs for last and are the only ones with safety to play with. With the EVA 8 out, they should be able to clean things up. There are only 3 squads left in the first game today.
Look at this!
Kick is one of them, sitting up on top of the telephone pole. They're gonna try and drop now, but they can't. Dead Inside take the first game.
Wow, that was a Loba team that has plenty of looting to be done in Lava City. So for them, it looks like the Loba paid off, and that is a major pickup to start the day. We know that that building was in, but once that final zone closed in and it was out in the open, it was all about just lemmings dropping out one by one, and everybody just started. I mean, at that point, you're trying to call the same target, but everybody kind of looks the same. And Dead Inside managed to manage the chaos the most and won game number 1.
And in such a weird way, the characters that so few people were holding also ended up shifting the tides of battle dramatically. We mentioned the Loba team that ended up taking it. Well, that was so useful for them because a lot of teams at that point in the game were running very low on ammunition as well. They didn't have to play with the scarcity of that resource. The Crypto denying two teams the safety in the final circle, so impactful as well, and we see that patience and ability to play off the unique things that you end up picking really paying off in those final circles where the margins are so ridiculously thin. Off of that game, we got our first couple points in, and we're going to get the chance to take a look at who scored the most, who's got themselves in those first place positions, and who's got a lot of room to make up after we take a short break. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're heading into game 2 of the day, and well, game 1, J-How, was filled with aerial views in action. I'm expecting game 2 to be a little bit cleaner. We'll likely get ourselves a little bit more of the team perspective, as there were some technical difficulties that were holding us up there, despite the fact that the teams, evidently unhindered by that, gave us some banger gameplay.
Yeah, I mean, that pulling to Lava City was a major play for a lot of teams. Had that pulled north, it would have been a completely different game. But Dead Inside was the victors of game number 1, as you said, with the technical difficulties, not just in the observing, but because of that, we won't necessarily have the points right away for game number 1, so we will be able to update when that is manual. So we'll have some updates as things go on, but right now we don't have those available. Dia, also, thanks for being a trooper this weekend. I know you're coming off a cold, man. I know that you're battling some things, and you sound excellent today, but as far as these teams go, I mean, yeah, there was a lot that went on there. That building right there ended up being the one. I mean, the play of the game, though, was that kick ult that came over. They were on that lone building on the east side, flew up with the Valkyrie. We saw a lot of Valkyries, and you and I were talking during the break. And one thing I noticed, because we know what tomorrow is with the patch, but the patch ain't here yet. There was like 1 Octane in the entire game, man.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about that patch, because not everybody will have had the chance to read it. Why might you not be running Octane, J-How?
Well, I mean, they're going to be taking down the horizontal distance that you can travel. It says by about 10 to 15%. So the horizontal distance means less options to get into certain areas that you might otherwise get to. It makes you more vulnerable. Also makes it harder to third party because it takes more time to close that distance. Also, the stem regen down from 1.5 to 1. So now that's going to be a hit towards Octane. A lot of people are calling it a pretty big nerf. We've seen a lot of people going back to Wraith. We've seen more Valkyries springing up for people to start testing out new comps. So we could see a very different meta next week, but I think a lot of teams are already getting a step ahead by preparing now going into the future weeks, because remember, 1 out of the 20 teams is going to make it today. The other 19 will have an opportunity to continue to make it over the next 3 weeks. So I think that's why you see a lot of teams already adapting to the new meta, but we also have a very different meta in EMEA with different characters. There's more caustics, more cryptos than, say, an NA meta.
There's even a seer right there. If you take a look in the top right corner, ZMB on Nemesis is going to be taking the seer into this next game, and that's something that we did not get a lot of exposure to in game 1, especially because there were some teams that were contested off drop, and that looks like it's going to be happening again. This early action, especially over by Geyser, can determine a lot for these teams, and that's a nice gold shield.
Yeah, Red Dragon being one of these teams here in Lava Siphon, they're going to be contesting off drop, so a couple of our teams are going to be going down. Looks like Red Dragon, they do have the EVA now to be able to move in aggressively, but that gold shield is going to be there. 49-35, that's going to leave hold back a little bit of tryhard. Remember, the Hemlock Hipfire buff comes tomorrow as well. Could be something that be advantageous, but it looks like Red Dragon already losing. PK going to have to try and regroup and rebound here.
Fights now even. And Red Dragon gonna be able to pop that Phoenix kit, which is actually really big. That gold shield, though, is still really impactful in these fights, and you gotta come in and help your team. The P2020 is gonna end up getting the kill and the knock, and finishing them off as Red Dragon managed to survive.
Big for them. We also know that Bear Claw was dropped on again. We'll see if anything springs up there. Right now, this is our only team out. But Eternal, one of our big surprises throughout the semifinals yesterday, Dia, they're going to be dropping around Dorito here on the bridge. They heard the action, not necessarily looking to get aggressive, but we also have a look at that zone. That zone is going to be pulling directly to them. So they have a lot of good spacing right now if they do want to hold. And they don't necessarily have to force anything because they're going to already be secured for that late game. So decisions for them in terms of how they want to go ahead and play this position and where they want to move to and what they feel is the safest, as Lava Siphon has definitely changed a lot of the ways that people approach that area now.
It really has, and because it's such an interesting POI to play around that has a lot of hidey holes around it in a way that, while Sorting Factory used to provide some of the same, was also in a way very open, very easily pushable. I feel like this as I'm going to take a small detour, is definitely difficult to push. Roger Bodger, we're playing different games.
Yeah, it looks like Succubus took the brunt end there from Bear Claw, and they're going to have to try and rat that one out for the rest of the game. Whether they survive in the little toilet area as Caustic, we'll find out just how long Succubus can survive. But here we get a good look at it. Harvester, Lava Siphon, and Dorito are the main areas that you're going to see. You'll see teams play the Snake on the northeast side of Harvester. Teams play around Dorito, and those ones on the big building there on the east side of Lava Siphon are going to be the main real estate that we see a lot of teams try and get to early before we start to see where the final zones close in. Because if it's on the left of the choke towards Harvester, completely different story. If it's Dorito, we all know there's plenty of buildings there and a lot of chaos now with that bridge.
It's interesting right now seeing Clean do this, because they did have the option to push all the way back into Fragment to just take that safety, especially since they were being contested at the choke. But whenever I see a team that has an analyst or a coach on it, like G-Dolphin in this case, I'm always curious as to where their heads are at, because it's not necessarily just all in terms of the micros of can we take this fight, but how are we getting ourselves in the best position for the next fight is something that I know is always on their mind. And I think that pushing into Harvester right now is a really interesting decision that will ultimately get them a little bit safer for next ring. But are they expecting the zone to pull over here?
That's the hard part about reading the zone. I mean, I think if you look at it right now on the surface, it doesn't look like it will, but there are times where it will pull there. I think the majority of the circle being over there, and that's the joy of this game, is that you just don't know. And I think that G-Dolphin, as you said, I mean, he's the coach for probably arguably the best team in the world, so he definitely has some experience in reading this, but he's also one heck of a player. I mean, he'll sometimes sub for them, and guess what? They do pretty darn good.
Oh, yeah.
He finds himself with his team here now, as they're going to be one of the teams contending for an ALGS spot as well. So yeah, I think that they have a pretty good idea of what they want to do, but if it doesn't work out to pull towards there, we know that they have the skill to make sure and be able to say, hey, this is how we deal with it if it doesn't, and if it does, they're in a really good spot.
I really like the use of the crypto there from Eternal in the meantime, just laying down the drone to cover an angle. A lot of times you see it used as a scouting tool outside to see who's in the area, what sort of teams are we dealing with. But in this case, it's being used to specifically cover one door, and in a way, adds sort of a fourth man to your party. While Eternal trying to hold on to what's a very difficult place to hold on to in Lava Siphon, that sort of pseudo extra man is going to be very, very useful as they get additional data. And speaking of additional data, I'm just going to see how Seer is used.
Yeah, this is probably the most unique comp, I think. I think this is even more unique right now than the Loba comp we saw from Dead Inside. I'd say they're pretty close. When you have the Octane that's coming in that we all know is going to be basically forced out, if you will, but the Seer as well. We know Seer was dominant in the beginning. Ever since those nerfs, we saw teams try and play around with it, get a lot of testing with it, and a lot of people went back to Bloodhound. And even then, people are like, well, the Bloodhound nerf was enough to where maybe we would start to work in something without the scans. But for teams that do like to play beacons, that do like to rotate early, they're going to stick with one of those characters, whether it be a Bloodhound, a Valkyrie, or a Seer, can make sure and get that scan. And that's exactly what they need on the beacon, because that fits their play style. Teams that don't play those early rotations might look at it a little different.
We'll see how that ends up paying off for them, as early rotations has definitely been something that's been heavily emphasized, especially in this round of the qualifiers. A nice high vision from that crypto drone. Give me flashbacks to last game is going to make sure that nobody is around. Well, Nemesis, I know. Well, Nemesis, they
free cam
sit in defense exactly. That's one of the nice things about observing a crypto is you can be like, they know when we can free cam, so they'll just, they'll do it.
Charge rifle, we know. I tell you what, Rambo yesterday, definitely in a charge rifle if you're an NA fan. The charge rifle, if you ever want to upgrade your shields, the charge rifle's pretty darn good at it. As 23 away from purple, look for them to be rotating shields here from Eternal to make sure that everybody's juiced up and ready to go.
Yeah, they had a really nice grasp on the game last time as well. Really good priority on the rotations, and arguably had some of the best spots until Kick wrestled it from them. This time, Kick not nearly so close is likely not going to be their challenge this game, and maybe that's the thing that lets Eternal claim a top spot, as they were doing pretty darn well yesterday. Borgir sitting on a rotational spot up in the north are going to have a little bit more of a difficult time, especially if the zone ends up pulling into Lava Siphon, but for right now, interestingly enough, are pretty safe right next to this bridge.
It's such an interesting comp too, Dia. I mean, the Caustic, Gibby, and the Valkyrie. So the Valkyrie takes care of their mobility. They have the beacon scan, but the Caustic and the Gibby, very defensive-oriented characters, they're going to be able to do that. There's going to be the go ahead and thirst on one. Don't quite have an idea on who that is. Meanwhile, Australis being pinched here in the snake and the choke will have to potentially fight their way out. We did see them get some damage in just before. See if that ends up breaking out or whether they're able to reset. I think getting that thirst there definitely alleviates some of the pressure for them. So we now have Borgir getting an eye on a team coming down the hill, and they're going to go ahead and see the Wraith portal. And when you get cracked, that's going to send you back a couple steps to close the door and no more peeking.
Yeah, you let that Wraith go through, as Australis also in a fight over here on the receiving end of a defensive bombardment. Shotguns in the dome. It's a classic, a tale as old as time. A portal to try and get your teammates out as Patmir follows you up here. Portal looks like it's not going to be enough. The wingman not going to finish off the job, though. And Australis are still going to be caught in the S. Still not the best place to be, but they managed to survive for now, sandwiched as they might be.
Yeah, I think they are the victors here in a lot of this. They're going to go ahead and run down and try and finish this off. Wraith kind of dancing around, taking the portal. You've got one sitting on the other side.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, there they go. They end up getting that down. So that is going to be 69 IQ. Taking the fall, I believe, there. It looks like we now have our kill feed squared away. So we'll get a better idea on how things are going. But sitting in that choke, that's not a bad place to be, especially when we look at the map. Holding that area, especially with that comp, is kind of easy to do. It's just rotating out of there is the next step.
Taking a look at this map, though, you talked about getting a better idea. Right over here on the receiving end of a defensive bombardment. Shotguns in the dome. It's a classic, a tale as old as time. A portal to try and get your teammates out as Patmir follows you up here. Portal looks like it's not going to be enough. The wingman not going to finish off the job, though. And Australis are still going to be caught in the S. Still not the best place to be, but they managed to survive for now, sandwiched as they might be.
Yeah, I think they are the victors here in a lot of this. They're going to go ahead and run down and try and finish this off. Wraith kind of dancing around, taking the portal. You've got one sitting on the other side.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, there they go. They end up getting that down. So that is going to be 69 IQ. Taking the fall, I believe, there. It looks like we now have our kill feed squared away. So we'll get a better idea on how things are going. But sitting in that choke, that's not a bad place to be, especially when we look at the map. Holding that area, especially with that comp, is kind of easy to do. It's just rotating out of there is the next step.
Taking a look at this map, though, you talked about getting a better idea of what was going on. Morning Stars, interestingly enough, should have just gotten that idea, but have one of the hardest rotations to make right now coming into this next ring. Every spot that you want is taken, and it's going to be a high demand to survive. As remember this, Caustic? You remember Roger sitting in the squatty potty? He is no more.
I mean, it took a little bit, but they found the third member. They took care of the two early on. They finished off the third, I think, by circumstance much later. But Bearclaw getting revenge from game number one. It looks like they're repositioning as well. So they're going to move up. Whether that's to try and be aggressive on another team, we'll find out, as they do get some early KP in a spot where I think we're used to seeing them in.
And definitely wanting to hold on to that area. I think it's really interesting when teams prioritize going back instead of setting up where they just got their kills, because it means that there's so much more value in the real estate for them, whether it be in comfort or in where the expected ring is going to pull is always something that we're interested in seeing. Signal Lunaire playing it slow, playing it really quiet right now with some pretty close range weapons on their Wraith. Are going to be waiting for a fight to break out, and likely a scrappier one.
Yeah, I think when you do have those short-range guns and you're here, you're playing for the later game and the later stages. A team, yeah, there are certain teams that we saw with some consistently high rankings in the semifinals, but they didn't necessarily have the frags that you normally associate with some of those teams. So there are teams that do play a lot more reserved. So you'll see a lot of these teams kind of take that approach. Sometimes it's just a matter of where the zone is. Sometimes it's a matter of what you get off drop. I mean, it can really be a lot of determining factors to the playstyle, but there are some teams that just consistently play that way.
We're going to get the chance to see how that playstyle gets shifted up, though, as right now we haven't had rings that are too demanding just yet. Nothing's forced you into the open, and there are a lot of buildings around Lava Siphon and the spill out into the north that provide you a lot of safety. That's why we're at 15 squads right now, still a relatively high amount, as Clean get to hold this corner. We've seen the S on the other side get held in its own right by Astralis, and for right now, at the very least, nobody has been forced out of their comfort zone. Nobody's had to fight or sit in a position all the way out in the open. But right at the end of this next one, that's that magical place that you mentioned between round 3 and 4, that's where we can see things really start to change. And Astralis, they want to get in a better position, but remember, Harvester was taken from them and they're still stuck in the S.
I mean, the big thing is for them, I don't think this is that bad of a spot either. I mean, they know now with the zone, there's only one spot that teams can really come in, and that's here. You have the north side choke and the south side choke, where we know that Clean kind of went in on the other side, that back door into Lava Siphon. But the expectation, they now can control this. And I think this is probably one of the safer spots right now, is that you know that you're not going to get pushed. We now see the rotation going out. They might have been able to spot that. It's just a matter of rotating in, which is probably the most difficult spot. There's a couple of zips. There's one close, and then there's one far going up towards the bridge, and there's some of those small buildings. If the zone pulls that way, they have that. However, if it does go towards the northern part of Dorito, I think that's a much more problematic rotation, but it also means the zone will be in their favor. So I think they have a lot of things going for them. For now, it's only when we hit zone 5 and 6 that we'll see how good this is. That's when it becomes much more difficult. I think they're in a great spot.
I mean, it's been evidenced now by the fact that, you know, that squad that was pushing out over by Harvester ended up taking the long rotation around. Top Dogs also playing around by the edge of the ring, seem to have found themselves some kills, and it's on 69 IQ, who are still playing so far edge that I think it's punishing them a little bit, J-How.
Yeah, they've been kind of picked off as things go on here, and we know they are the team that likes to land far northwest. So with the Lava City pull, this is more middle of the map, but it's still on the southern hemisphere, if you will. So they do have a longer rotation than most other teams. And I believe we had seen them in the kill feed go down. Perhaps they got the banner and got a recovery. They just haven't been able to recover fully as a team. They do have eyes on this banner. Looks like they might try and risk going in on this because they are so far on the outside.
This may be guarded. You'll have to keep your eyes on that. Jinxie going to be able to spot any of the tracks with the Bloodhound and see if anybody is still nearby, but they don't want to expend that scan just yet. Instead, they get the banner, and I do not know. I honestly could not tell you, J-How, if they get that res. We have seen some crazy stuff. We've seen it in ALGS finals, some late game reses, but it is still incredibly difficult to pull off, and you can't guarantee it. You may just have to play the rest of this game out to the X, or in most cases 3, and that can be challenging in its own right, but something these players need to be expecting going into today as a possibility.
Well, you mentioned that there are some crazy reses. That one down in the valley, down in the river area, if there's a lot of fighting going on above, they might be able to get away with it. What they do with it is another story, but I think there is that one weird lone opportunity. If it does happen, we'll see it and it'll be exciting. If it doesn't happen, it's to be expected. So we'll see what unfolds there. But we still have 15 teams left. 69 IQ did get spotted out. They are going to be eliminated from this game. Now we're down to 14 teams, and now eyes are locked onto SMS, who is out there. Charge rifle, the monster, 3 damage there coming out.
It's the guaranteed one, but oh my lord, this Gibraltar ultimate is picking up so much more. There's so much damage farming, and I'm surprised that we're not getting any action in the kill feed right now, as GG are pushing up on Astralis, one of the spots that we mentioned earlier. Astralis now in one of the strongest spots, says look at how impossible it is for GG to get in. They have a minute 20 seconds to decide what their next move is, but this probably not it.
Well, there's 2 options for GG. You fight your way through, or you Valk ult over. The Valk ult, you're not exactly going to find a warm welcome. So I think for GG, this might be their best bet. But when you look at the fact that it is a caustic and there is a Jibby, of course, how do you possibly push through there? And I think that they've made the smart play to try and rotate out. But as we look at the next zone, we see most of Dorito out of there. The Dorito building, if you will, is definitely not in. So it's mostly around that bridge, pulling towards Lava Siphon. And that big building in Lava Siphon, Siphon, teams are going to be in there, which means multiple teams can exist. So there's going to be a lot of sight lines coming from Lava Siphon. It's going to make it difficult. Everybody else that's in the buildings, they're going to be holding on for dear life to make sure that nobody pushes them, because they know there's not a lot of places for teams to go when you have 14 squads.
The real estate that Bear Claw prized earlier right now biting them a little bit. We're gonna have to see how they end up playing that out. This is the gymnastics that I like seeing in these buildings, as Borgir gonna be setting up for an extreme defense. GG trying to push their way in once again, still getting very heavily gate capped. And right now, as time ticks on, you're thinking about that Belk ult more and more, and yep, perfect timing on that one.
I mean, sometimes desperation is a must. They're going to try and get scans off of this to make and figure out where they can go. Looks like they're going to play fence line and some head peeks, but that is Bear Claw that's going to be on the other side on the left. They've got to hope they're actually going to go far here. Teams are starting to spot them. They're actually landing directly on a team. This is a bold move, and it's going to be Bear Claw. Anybody that pokes their head out, Bear Claw is going to get shots on them. Meanwhile, GG being punished for that Hail Mary play. They do get a knock of their own. What more they can do, we're going to find out now, as they've got Snitch down. But so far, they're in. How much longer? We don't know.
Still sandwiched between two squads that have nothing to do but shoot at you, and Sabadope barely going to survive there. Going to be able to pop the shield back, get himself that extra 75 HP. This portal is the thing that they're playing around, obscuring some of the vision. They're going to try and get this res. It seems like GG actually survived for right now, and force kick away while fending off Bear Claw.
Oh, those were some nice shots by the flatline. That can put the brakes on a push real quick. As you can see, the kill feed going from 4 to 5. We're down to 10 teams. So a lot of teams starting to get punished coming in. And we see the zone now. It's going to be on the Lava Siphon side, but it will be out in the open, meaning only one building is going to be in. And that building right now is here, occupied by a Caustic team. So GG just trying to survive on the outside. If they can get a knock, they'll look to push in. But right now, they are content, as they know that they are somewhat safe from line of sight from a lot of the other teams that are occupied with each other.
A great read on the zone and great execution to back it up. It's the one thing that they need, and they would really like to get inside right now, but Astralis holding up in here is making that really problematic, especially with the Caustic right now. And as much as you'd like to get inside this building, I think you give it up for another day. You keep Astralis just sitting here playing defensive. But my lord!
That's huge. They're going to have to try and push in through this Caustic gas. Remember, the gas was buffed a few weeks back, so it is much more powerful.
It's over now.
The massive shots out in return. Huge shot there is going to take down Snitch, so it's a 2 versus 2, and the Caustic still in the inside. The res is going to start going off. That means Pat has to try and hold here. That's going to be another knock there. Dope going down. And my goodness, Australis holding this building with the Caustic. They're going to get the thirst onto Snitch. And Dope is still down. Pat, maybe a few errant rockets going out there, trying to interrupt that res. My goodness, what a hold here for Australis.
That was Pat Muir just going absolutely insane with the Mastiff. Somebody take it away from that man, because you do not give him a shotgun and hope to live. Bear Claw right now, having pushed all the way over across the bridge, now need to keep themselves inside of a home and need to push into the next dome in front of them. Jellied Court ends up going down, but Bear Claw lose 1, they lose 2, and ASCII is on less than 10 health right now. Gonna be able to pop this shield ban, but still needs to come to the rescue of his team. The Eva is going to find Flush, but it's not going to be enough. And once again, he's pushed into a corner where Bear Claw cling to their last hopes in this member.
I mean, he's on life support right now. He was being targeted by the team on the bridge as well, but they did survive. Borgir dropped to play the low ground. They do have a Valkyrie. Whether they have the ult to go ahead and make a play to go up, we'll find out. Zone 6, the final zone, closing in 35 seconds. Borgir, this is probably one of the safer spots on the low ground. They know that Bear Claw was above them. If they were watching the kill feed, they know that they're down. You can identify these things, but it's the team on the bridge, and it's the team, of course, Australis, that's going to be in the building above that has that position. They have to walk out, and they have the Caustic, which means that they are in prime position to dominate this lobby, but it's everybody else who's going to try and materialize something. If they get pushed, it's going to be chaos. But right now, Nemesis, another one of those teams that is running the Seer. They're going to have a lot of information. They are sitting right next to zone with these boxes for safety.
Quite a lot of it right now is that R301 chews through Astralis, and on the other side of it finds even more damage. Already sitting on red shields, 112. This guy is beaming, but he's also very quickly running out of ammunition, something that is going to be extremely necessary, as you and I both know. In this last circle, you need to conserve things, and it changed a lot of fights last game. Now can Nemesis hold on with very limited resources?
I mean, this is going to close in real fast. Final zone starting to eke its way in, and this building, they might get naded out, sitting on some arc stars. This building for Nemesis, they have eyes on the only way out. Arc star is going to go in. That's going to cause some issues. Meanwhile, Borgir did use that Valkyrie. They're going to go up and fly out of necessity. Got to be careful on how much damage they take. That's going to be one tick. They're going to be landing right in the middle on top of things. Where do you go? Right here on the corner. They seem to have found a safe spot. Meanwhile, ASCII has somehow survived long enough, but he's going to be out down to 4 teams.
Chewed through and gets thrown right back into the ring. Borgir claimed the spot that was formerly his and have the dome down as well. With the Caustic Ult buying them time, it's actually a nice spot to be in. And they get all these death boxes as well. Borgir may have put themselves in position to win the game, as there are 2 other squads fighting on the other side. Very quickly going to just be one, as Nemesis are getting chewed through in this dome fight.
Yeah, they tried to move forward with those bubbles, but it didn't work. Meanwhile, Borgir, the team that came from the bottom, they are now going to the top.
3
as
squads.
The EVA shots coming out. That's going to be
squads.
Down to 2 teams. Borgir moving forward with Nox already down. That's going to be the thirst, and it looks like Borgir is going to go ahead and clean things up. And that play from the bottom, I don't even have to call it anymore. There's only so much time you can live in the air. Borgir is going to be your Game 2 champions. Pick up a victory here early in the day.
Last member of Astralis goes out to the ring, and man, oh man, those rotations really paid off. Really smart play from Borgir, and the thing that stands out to me the most was the way they ended up playing that low ground. You and I both talked about it, but the thing is that intuitively, low ground isn't a safe spot. And yet, you can make it work in situations like this because Borgir know nobody can really push you down there.
Out of sight, out of mind. When you're under there, we saw there was like one peak they went out, saw the team up on the bridge, and there was like a little nook there closer towards the bridge. And they're like, guys, we're fine right here. When it comes time to move out, we'll wait for that zone to close in. We'll pinch it. The flight in the air did scare me a little. There's a couple of ways to deal with that, but they got a little aggressive circling. They took 1 tick of damage, but they were able to land. They found that corner spot where we saw a team previously there that Nemesis was targeting, but Nemesis then got pushed on, so there was nobody to shoot them on that corner, and that was actually really nice for them to hold that. They pushed in, they got a lot of KP towards the end. I'm excited to see how that game ended up turning out for them, as they picked up a lot at the end of that game.
Yeah, bird's eye view really paid off for them. Now we're going to see if we can take a short break and get our own bird's eye view on the stats, see who's landing where in just a few minutes. My oh my, folks, if you tuned in for preseason qualifier action, you have not been disappointed so far. 2 games and 2 crazy endings, Jay Howe, have brought us all the way to this point. We're going into our 3rd one. We're coming up on halfway through the day.
Yeah, you can see the stark contrast in end zones when one ends right outside of a building in Lava City and the other one ends outside of an area where there's only one building in. You have to be very creative with ways to get in. Borgir, the most creative of them all, ended up being the one with that victory in game number 2, using that Valk ult, finding prime positioning, and then cleaning up there at the end. So for them, they played it perfectly and a well-earned victory, but we still have a lot more to go as we're 2 out of 6 in.
Well, let's take a look at where that landed them, because as we're coming up to that halfway mark, there's a lot of points to be had. You can see right now, Astralis definitely coming out on top, at least in the points. 21 overall, 12 kills, but that's just off of 1 game. I'm curious as to where we're landing overall, and dead inside, the winners of game 1, they're still on top.
Yeah, it shows how big one victory can be for you, and for Dead Inside to have that big one to go in. Remember, only one team from today will go automatically into the Pro League, into ALGS. The other remaining teams are playing for points that will accumulate unless you win one of the future 3 tournaments that are going to be had over the next 4 weeks. So there is some good ways to look at this, right? If you're not first, you're definitely not last in this situation. So all these points do matter for these teams, and so for teams to pick up these wins, whether they win today, these wins can matter for weeks on end. So it's really good for them overall, and for these teams to have a lot of kills so far, to have that close after our first few games.
That's something that I really appreciate about the format, is that everybody's going to be playing their best Apex Legends every single game. One of the teams, though, that has already been highlighted that I want to sort of sing the praises of a little bit more. We talked about Borgir. We talked about the smart play. Yesterday, in the semis, their first 3 games didn't go this well. They didn't manage to pick up a win in the first half, and actually only had 3 points going into game 4, but then ended up having a series of miraculous games in order to qualify. And if they can pull off those same miraculous games, but consistently, starting from game 2 so early on, there's a world where they're the team to qualify today. Yes, there's a lot of competition, but it is getting really tight, and being able to perform at the top of your game off of when you've been playing for 3 days in a row is really the thing that's deciding here.
Especially when you look at Saturday and Sunday, those are not short days either. Those are long days for these players, and they're doing it. They're driven. They want to be the best. And I mean, getting a spot in ALGS, Thea, I mean, I think everybody knows the prestige of just getting there, the opportunity to perform at LANs, you know, as long as things clear up and going into the future, and just the prize pool in general. The prize pool for ALGS next season, my goodness, I want to quit being a caster and start playing for some real money, you know. Let me be a coach somewhere. Just give me some piece of that pie. It's going to be huge next year. So for these teams, I mean, every game, the fact that if you don't qualify today, but as you said, every single game matters, and I think you can't stress that enough, is that it's not like, we're 20th and we're not doing well, let's just send it in at the rest of in game number 6. No, your game 6 points will matter if you don't make it and going into future weeks. Every game matters. It's fantastic.
And that can be really draining. It's something that I think is really interesting, where as we enter the 3rd day, as we enter the finals, you can see where that toll has started to take away from some teams, and which teams are able to push through it and are still performing at their best. And right now, we're going to get the chance to see that, or rather, maybe later, as we're getting an odd screen right now, and I suspect will be coming back to my face.
Yeah, I mean, look, I like seeing you, Dia, but I like the game a whole lot more. Hopefully we'll get that resolved pretty quickly, but it does give us an opportunity to continue to talk about this, because for these teams, of course, getting into the ALGS is the main goal, but the experience, as you said, the mental part of this game, when you play this much, I mean, look, these guys probably are playing 8 to 10 plus hours a day in general. A lot of ranked for a lot of these players, but there's a whole different level. There are multiple levels, and when you reach this stage, the mental drain and even the smallest mistake can be very punishing. And I think you hit it there, is the taxing part of this is going to be difficult.
And Jay, the thing is that you said the smallest mistake. It really is more true here than almost any other tournament that happens in the offseason. You and I have both cast our fair share of Apex Legends, but the difference from 24 points in the top spot to even at the bottom of top 10, 12 is literally one win away. It is so ridiculously small where sometimes after 2 games we see 40 plus points on one team because they've been decimating lobbies, and the same thing isn't true here. Though some teams may be able to pull out wins more consistently, it's not like they're leagues above everybody else. In this case, in these games specifically, those margins are razor thin.
I mean, let's put this into perspective. 69 IQ had the highest point total of any team in EMEA yesterday with 81 points. They started the day with 2 first place finishes, a second place finish, 12th, 2nd, and 12th. 4 of the 6 games, they were top 2. They have 4 points through 2 games today. That's not to say they can't bring it back and have more of those performances, but they started very hot yesterday. And today, they've gotten a total of 4 points. That's a team I think a lot of people are keeping their eyes on. When you perform that well in semifinals and you dominate lobbies that hard, your expectations go up. That's just the nature of how it is. So the fact that they haven't performed yet, could it be a product of where the circles are? You could say that about Lava City because they land trials. They literally have to make it to the other corner of the map. Last game, they got caught out in rotation and then tried to regroup and then tried to regroup again. It just didn't work out for them. Is it a product of the circles? Is it a product of the pressure? Or are they just having a string of bad luck? That's the beauty of 6 games, but they're a team that's going to have to pull it together.
They really are, and I want to see them sort of pick things up. You talked about the circles. We're likely going to get a shift with 2 relatively southeastern ones pulling away from them. I'm always keeping track here. I'm always writing down, where are we getting zones pulling to? If we get one that pulls up towards Epicenter Survey, I think we see games change a lot. And that's where the consistency of teams can really be tested as well, is their versatility across the rest of World's Edge. Because right now, a lot of the teams that have been winning have been getting there relatively early. And I'm not sure how Valkyrie is factoring into all of that. You talked about the difference between Wraith and Valkyrie, how people are picking between one and the other. I feel like despite what we saw last game, Wraith is really the pick for these later game rotations, and Valkyrie gives you so much early flexibility to say, hey, I know that we land pretty far away from this on the map, but this zone is close to home for us now because we were able to get there so quickly.
Yeah, it is a very, like, when we see meta shifts, they happen, and when they happen, they are very drastic. Like when the Octane came in, you're not going to see Revtane in these, but the Octane definitely changes the way teams can rotate. It went from, a Wraith meta to an Octane meta. And now with Wraith getting all the nerfs that she's had, I would say balancing, if you will. Some people would say nerfs. But when we see Octane now being dialed back, it changes the way things are played. I mean, we saw yesterday, I saw on stream, there were multiple people playing Valkyrie that generally would be playing Octane. They are preparing, not just in ranked, but for the impending change in the meta shift. And we've seen Caustic have value in these building fights, but not every fight is going to be like this. So the versatility that you mentioned is going to be tested for some of these teams that do run Caustics. But the team that running Valkyrie, Caustic, Gibraltar, very, very different story.
Now speak to me a little bit here, because you talk about nerfs, and in my mind, nobody has been taken down several pegs nearly as recently as Seer has. That is somebody who was dominating lobbies. Like, it was pick constantly in the pro meta, and right now, we're just seeing one team run the Seer. It's a lot like the Loba here. It's very, very sparse, and even the value that it's providing, I would say, is a little bit questionable in these late game scenarios. Why do you think that's being picked up here? Why is it not a Bloodhound or even something else like a mobility character?
The Bloodhound, I think, is much more prominent in North America right now than it is in our EU regions. But I do think the Seer, the flashbang nerf, as an observer, I'm glad that's gone.
Oh my god, yes.
The damage was very frustrating for a lot of the players because in a weird way, you could kind of build up your shields and it was very frustrating to play against. You were eating up resources. If you remember prior to the Watson meta, everybody, and that was back in the meta where you could carry 2 grenades per slot.
Oh,
by
yeah.
the way.
Oh.
You would just nade until the other team couldn't take it anymore. You would literally wear them out of shield cells and meds. That was the way the game was played. It was very bizarre back then, but it was very entertaining for people. Then Watson came in, drastically changed it. And I think there was some element of that to draining meds from players. You even saw them start to take off shields just so they could use syringes. And there was so much frustration with playing against that once you start to take away the flashbang from it, you start to take away that 10 damage that kept ticking in. And when you're hitting 3 people and getting 30 damage per tick, you're eating up not just 1 shield cell, but 2 and potentially 3 shield cells from an economy for teams that might not have it. They like to rotate early. So you were eating up resources. There were so many different things that it did well that once you started to take away the main elements of it, you were kind of left with just something that I guess Bloodhound does well. Shields don't really matter, and knowing that, teams are going to play off that 1 scan from Bloodhound and be able to push 1 individual. So you're going to have different ways that you can play off of it. They don't really care as much about the shields and the health unless they've already done damage. Normally they're doing shield checks. Normally they're doing different things, so they have that information beforehand. But there's a whole lot to go into, but we are now ready to go back into game number 3.
Yeah, we're going to see how this one plays out. It seems like right now we are dropping with, yes, 20 squads, but 59 players, 69 IQ, currently missing 1 member. So maybe this isn't the comeback game that we were expecting from them, though. Hey, if it is JL, I am certainly ready to see it.
Well, the big points, of course, were Lava Siphon, where teams were contested, but more so the teams in Geyser. Bearclaw and Succubus. Succubus got the better end of game number 1. Bearclaw got the better end in game number 2. These teams have met here, not just in this tournament multiple times, but previous tournaments. They know how to fight against each other. Bearclaw has won out a lot of these. We'll see if they can do it again.
Right now, setting up do have the most eastern side of this, whereas Succubus have taken the center, and they have the ability, if Succubus do want to end up rotating into Lava Siphon to try and take some of the Dorito buildings that lie up north of there. And a lot of whether they take this fight or not is dependent on loot. Succubus just have the 1 blue shield, but they got a Volt, they got a Mastiff. They're ready to fight. And my question is, are Bearclaw also ready? With a Prowler? Methinks so.
Yeah, they were loaded up on close range guns, and we saw a lot of shotguns, the Prowler, the Flatline, and I believe an L-Star. So Bearclaw definitely ready to go. The problem that you're having is they're all sitting on white shields. Old as Forever does look like they had to retreat. So if they can get some information on this team being split, this is a caustic, so it is hard to go in here. You can see they now have information. One of the traps was triggered on the right side here, but there's the Bloodhound scan. If they see that they're split, they're going to try and make a play, but the doors are locked, which means that pushing in this building is going to be very difficult.
Yeah, that is a lot of information. I mean, you talked about the caustic barrel getting blown up, and I was like, yeah, definitely. That's something we have to keep our eyes on.
Look at that flank.
The value of the Bloodhound, ridiculous. Yeah, Paradise really getting creative right now. Might just dismantle Succubus before our eyes, but we're going to have to wait for that to pay off as Bearclaw playing very, very patiently right now. Are going to need to cause a little bit of confusion, maybe disrupt, find some damage. They do end up getting a nice chunk there. Throw in another one, and I think the push is on.
Yeah, Bearclaw has an approach to this. They're going to be playing off scans, playing off information, and they are going to bubble in for now. There's going to be a Havoc in return. Paradise coming in with the flank. This is going to be big for them in terms of how they're going to be able to manufacture, but it looks like Paradise actually on the brunt end taking quite a bit of damage. Meanwhile, Tyler and team, they're going to continue to move in. They've got to try and come to the safety of their teammate. Paradise, very, very low.
Nice knock. Bearclaw barely whipping that one out, as I was really worried there. The Thermite cutting off the support from the rest of his team, but everybody now grouped up with Paradise, and that res nearly impossible for Succubus sitting on top. Yes, they've got a lot of information, but now they don't have the members to take this fight. We're going to see how that ends up paying off for them as the res gets begun, but that grenade, very, very much a warning here, and you're going to have to leave. Even as the guns find flesh, the L-Star might be able to finish you off. It's not going to be quite enough.
Caustic damage doing work in the bottom, but they will go ahead and get that thirst onto Crip. So getting that first KP for Bearclaw, and it's clean that it's come to the third party. I thought that we had seen a Bloodhound scan come in, and it looks like clean. They're going to try and be the third party, but Bearclaw is holed up in there for now. They did win that fight, so I think for clean, they don't want to take this right away, and it looks like they're going to go ahead try and reposition. Looks like they're going to go ahead and try and make this rotation over here towards the corner building. Don't want any bit of that fight.
Yeah, they sort of take they take a long way around here, realizing that the reset's already happened. They don't have to go for this. Succubus don't seem like they're getting exactly the same vibes as they really want that banner. We saw them play with an extreme man disadvantage last time, and that's something else that they're risking now as well. When you're going in like this, 2v3, likely not something you're going to escape unscathed from, and they're putting themselves at risk of being knocked out of the game entirely.
Just looking at the mini map, and you can see all the shots going off. A lot of teams already pulling towards launch site. So the team of 69 IQ, we mentioned going in with one less person. They have another southern zone to deal with. I don't think they're going to be as concerned with how quickly they get there, but everybody else, they're going to be priming for positioning in there to try and take those buildings, because if it does pull there, I mean, it's very well could pull towards street or outside closer to lava siphon, but a lot of people have that anticipation. Meanwhile, Red Dragon, one of those teams here in tree, taking some damage, is PK. They have 1 KP of their own so far, maybe more, but still 20 squads left. We're down to, I guess they only have 1 if we dropped in with 59.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is kind of ridiculous, actually. The fact that we've seen kills, but no squad wipes, and teams are definitely playing this game oddly quite a bit safer, as I think that they recognize as much as we do that it is time to shape up or shut up, as Game 3 really making it difficult to come back from a big deficit if you do end up losing out on a lot of the points there. Red Dragon do have some safety off to the south here, right around tree, and have the guns to back them up as well, but holding on to this area, just a temporary solution, as we're going to see the crowding really become evident later on. Red Dragon are safe. My question is, for the teams that are out of zone, like 69 IQ, what sort of chokes are they going to be encountering on their way in?
If it does pull here, this is almost a zombie building, as we did see quite a bit of action in the kill feed there moments ago. But this building is like the zombie building, one of the hardest buildings to hold. If it does pull towards tree, this building becomes the most active by far. Looks like this team taking a long rotation. It looks like they probably got the banner. This is going to be the team that we had seen lose one earlier. And if they got the banner, this is going to be a res, and they will have a somewhat, I guess, easy rotation in, since all the teams are already in. Meanwhile, looks like we've got some action way down here, and this is an early fight. I mean, fighting for this positioning, I did not expect teams to get this aggressive, but it's actually Clean, the team that has made their way in. They are the aggressors, and it seems like they are the ones that are getting the damage in.
And they take these fights intentionally as well. If you see Clean start one up, you know that they think they can finish it. And right now, should be able to finish off one extra squad. 17 remaining already, as that one Wraith does die in AAS. They get pushed out once more. It seems like there's yet another push coming in, but may have just been some far off shots and people looting up, as right now you can also see on the other side of this, Bambino lying in wait. Eternal are also sitting down here at launch site, where I guess people are expecting the ring to pull.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when you see these early Jibby ults, that you could see it there on the left side of your screen, teams are just trying to use that for cover. I mean, why waste bullets? You can use this, you'll have plenty of time to get it back. Meanwhile, this fight happening over here on the fence line, these teams on the edge.
Look out for Fig as well. They don't have any points right now. If they can just get one kill, it is worth it. But Fig have definitely been suffering at the moment. Seems like they're going to get wiped out, though, and that point not going to come in today. Still sitting in the lowest rung on the totem pole, although I realize that that expression is technically backwards.
GG has been one of the very well-performing teams. They kind of finished middle of the road yesterday. They had some first-place finishes, and they had one huge game yesterday, but all their other ones, I would dare say they were average, but they've actually had a really good start to the day today. Been very active, finding kills, especially here on the edge of zone, one of the best places to find them. They've gotten some early KP here, so it's nice to see for a team like GG to be able to get into the finals and then also perform here so far in our first 3 games.
And they get to pick up a Loba ult as well that'll help them out in the ammo department. Not that they need it, with a whole lot backing them up on the Volt. We saw, like you alluded to, some very smart moves just last game from them. I really liked the way that they were able to balance the ideal landing spot, or the best one they could manage, with some of the best play to back them up there. And that's the balance that is very difficult to pull off. When you have the right call, sometimes you fail in the execution, and the other way can happen as well. But GG are very clearly able to bring those two things together, and if they can continue to do that, the consistency is going to pay off for them. That's something that you and I harp on time and time again when we get to see these games of Apex. High highs really, really matter, but it's managing what your lowest of the lows are. And if you can keep those safe, you're going to be okay.
I love the fact the crypto is kind of like the cheat code right now in this zone. With that beacon being right out in the open, they're one of the only teams, unless you want to risk a jibby bubble and all kinds of resources to get out there, but they are the one team that can scan this, and it helps us get an idea that this will be pulling, it does appear, towards launch site. So having that scan means that they are more than comfortable holding up here. They have a great position. They have a caustic with the doors locked, and to have that scan, this is a phenomenal position for Odin gamers.
It's actually kind of ridiculous looking at it now with the traps scattered around here. You just don't push this. It never happens because there's no reason to. I assume eventually they'll have to leave, but it is going to be a long time until Odin have to actually play Apex Legends in an aggressive way. Right now, it's just people getting their real estate around launch site, and they have theirs on luck. Kick, however, not quite so lucky, as they are still fighting around the tunnels to this eastern side.
Yeah, we know these positions are dominant when the zone does pull this way, and there's still a possibility that it does pull a little bit further east. So I think they're comfortable sitting out here, moving in if it does pull towards there, which they're going to find out soon. It definitely will be, I don't want to say a difficult rotation because there's a lot of head peaks. We know that there's a lot of terrain that you can play around. There's also, you can play underneath there as well. So they're content with holding here, playing the edge of zone, making sure nobody comes at their back. You can see Hyarka, the one holding the tunnel. Once that zone crests beyond that, you've got Nighty looking down towards the other end. So they have all the angles covered. Now they can move in comfortably and play the edge of zone. So a great rotation here for Kick. They would love to be, of course, on the inside, but when you're on this end and you don't have anybody in your back, it does alleviate some of that pressure. You can focus on moving forward and looking for these edge zone kills.
Yeah, if you're recognizing the members of Kick, but are like, I can't quite place it. These guys used to play under Flights of Fancy. They were recently picked up by Kick, and since then have been doing quite well. At the same time, Flights of Fancy also doing really well. I think that they're a very micro-talented team. They're very good with the in-game performance, the specifics, the nitty-gritty, and that's something that has paid off for them in a lot of tournaments. But here, it does really need to be that control mirroring. You talked about them holding the east side with the zones that can potentially pull over there towards that ramp potentially of launch site that we do see quite frequently. And right now, I like the fact that they're slowing down the game to their advantage, to try and make it so that when they do perform at the top of their game, it's when it really matters.
Or how about Bear Claw? I mean, they are taking a very safe rotation, eating the zone. They're going to find that they have even further to go. They're going to get here and they'll be able to regroup, but this still doesn't make it easier. It just gives them a different angle and a different approach. So now when they come in, they have the tunnel on the right, they have the buildings through the middle, or they could wrap around to the left. And you can rest assured that there will be somebody holding every single one of those points. We even saw Borgir, the one holding the staircase on the west side, which is now the right side for Bear Claw to go in. So that's going to be a spot that's going to be held. We know there were teams at Tree. I mean, this is going to be a difficult rotation for Bear Claw, a team that I think you and I coming in today would probably put them as probably one of the top teams that we anticipated. But however, they were one of the last teams to qualify in the semifinals. But I think expectations are high for our Bear Claw team, and they're going to have a tough fight here.
Yeah, Bear Claw is a very weird beast to me because you're right. I do rank them quite highly. I think that they're a very good team, but at the same time, they feel more like a team that is enabled by their knowledge of the map more than anything. A lot of times we see them when they're in positions to control chokes, really being able to have those spiky games, but they're not exactly a team that I classify as like enjoying playing edge. And I do get nervous for them when I see rings like this, when I see zones that pull away, because managing your rotations at the same time as trying to pick up kills is not something that historically they've been ridiculously good at. But right now, they may be looking to change it, as they do find some damage.
They tried to 3-2-1. They weren't able to get the knock, but I did see blood splatter, which means there was a crack, and they just missed getting the knock. Had they got the knock, that would have been a push for sure and picked up some more KP. Meanwhile, Red Dragon, one of those teams that was holding at Tree, They're going to be near one of the chokes as well. Playing near the truck, get some KP of their own. We know they got the early one, and now they look like to add to their total. But going in through, I think they got to play the northern end here, which is where they're looking at. I really think they have to kind of play out in the open. I don't think they can make it in through the southeast side, or the southwest side, I should say.
You know what? I'm a Southeast, brother. Yes, you're right. I'm a Southwest gamer all the way. I see this. I'm sitting over by the RV. I go, you know what? No, we're gonna take low ground. But I think that you're right. Like, it's the coward in me that makes me play this way, and they, at the very least, know that that is not going to be the path to success. As it would be extremely difficult to push into launch site right now, and whether they have that data or not, they can and should assume that exactly what we see right now is happening. That these people are holed up in here, and there is no real estate to claim.
I mean, bless the crypto for us. We know that launch site is going to be bonkers right now. We do have some action in the kill feed, but this crypto drone has been the one thing for. But here's the thing: you can do all the scanning, you can make it to the top 5, but are you going to get some kills? That's where it's really going to matter for them. Remember, these Valkyrie teams, we've seen them kind of fly up and over, kind of avert their way from danger, but they have to find their way in safely. I think that's what we're going to see, potentially Red Dragon make a Borgir style play to get in, because I mean, I don't think they're going to be trying to go through this zone.
No, I wouldn't think so. They might be readying up for it, but you're right. This Valkyrie seems like their best bet. Out of bounds is really risky up here, as with those cryptos especially, people are going to be spotting you. They're going to be ready for you to drop down. I also want to see in this zone who ends up getting the care package that just dropped, as those weapons can change games, and it's in the middle of 3 people that are looking right at it. So, or rather 3 squads that are looking right at it, which seems like it'd be a little difficult to get your hands on.
You better have a Wraith if you're going to make an attempt on that one.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Red Dragon moving forward, trying to get aggressive, potentially on this team that was just shooting at them. Maybe have something to play off of. They are in pursuit. They're going to go forward. I think this is their only way. Try and pick up some of this KP on the outside before they have to fight like crazy to get in. Here's going to be the shots coming in. The Eva shot's going to catch the Gibby bubble, but now they're starting to catch flesh. But it's actually going to be the trade there. Red Dragon going to go ahead and get the res on that L-Star 136. That's going to be some serious damage. They're trying to get the thirst for an armor swap. Instead, they're met with a Jibby defensive bombardment that will buy a little bit of time. See if that team can recover.
This is really tough because they were getting third party right now, and they're going to have to jump out to safety, but they know as much as we do that wipe was necessary. Red Dragon not only got KP off of that, but they needed ammunition, and because of the threat of the third party, they weren't able to pick it up. Look at the flat line that was being carried. Not now, right then. 12 ammo left on that. Not exactly your pride and joy as you move into the last circle, and that is something that might come back to bite them as zone is closing. We got to see how Red Dragon play this. They were prepping for the Valk ult earlier, but I haven't heard it go off.
It looks like they're at least going to get that KP, as I don't think that member, they're going to die to zone, so they do get that. Meanwhile, on the other end of things, you can see in the kill feed, it looks like Clean getting some of those kills as they rotate in. Remember, their building will not be in. They were on the far south side, so right now it's all about this team trying to gatekeep, and it looks like Chi-Chi here also being one of those teams to play the underside. Sometimes low ground has its advantages, and there's a lot of cover in these areas. I don't know if that's the perfect place, but for now it's good enough.
Yeah, they've got the Valkyrie as well, and we saw low ground pay off just last time, although this time I like it a lot more. It's a lot easier for them to get up and control a lot of this low ground. Just waiting on that knock, honestly. 34 damage finding. Evo, though, is a little bit of imperfect timing. Not going to find the kill there with the Rampage, but they have a surprising amount of cover to play around, especially with these caustic barrels being able to provide temporary land which to duck behind.
Now, I don't know how much longer. I mean, as the zone closes in, everybody, there's going to be at least 2 teams that can play under the zone on that northern side underneath there that's just going to be in the zone. So there are multiple teams that can play there. There's going to be teams on the bridge. There's going to be teams potentially under the bridge, and those teams under are going to have to fight each other, but the teams on top, depending on their angles and how much they're contested, they will be able to pick up some of that KP as well. So if you're on the underside, your angles have to be very, very direct, but you also have to be able to clean up and get to one of those primary spots, because there's not many that you can get by with. Meanwhile, Valkyrie Tactical coming up. We're down to 8 teams, only 1 duo squad. The Crypto has been dominant for information, but as we look at their KP, it is nil.
Yeah, it leaves something to be desired here, and they're hoping they can pick that up. But we talk about this a lot, this sort of play style that leads you to being able to sit in zone, being able to play safe does come with its risks. We can see Kick right now, risky themselves. 90 sitting on a white shield right next to Vic. They want this kill so bad, man. I can smell it.
Well, Borgir, a team that was playing Staircase, has had to move
They
up.
got it.
Meanwhile, there's going to be the knock. That's going to force them in. That's going to be a big, I believe that was an EMP that came out. That might have bounced off. Maybe not go where they wanted it to. Okay, that did go through. The animation looked like it bounced backwards. Meanwhile, it is going to be Kick now making their way in. They do have thermite grenades going in, trying to fly up and over to avoid some of this damage. Multiple people down now as Kick moving forward. They're going to get the Valkyrie Tactical, going to go ahead and hit some of that damage. I'm not sure if it actually went through. Meanwhile, Kick with the PK out here is going to hit, but they're going to be knocked there. It's up to a couple
Uako's got to clutch it.
90 trying to get there. It's
Uako
down
can
to
do
one
it.
member.
Oh, Uako! He gets taken out at the last second there, and it is by Eternal, no less. Holding on up here with the flatline. Only 2 more clips left, but the shield back going to pay off for them. Also, one of those crypto squads that is able to has been able to hold on to the center right now. Arguably have one of the best spots in the ring.
Yeah, Eternal, the one playing that bridge, was able to shoot down. They picked up some valuable KP. And speaking of KP, you've got at least 11 here for GG, who's playing on the underside. 3 teams left. We're going to look at the final zone coming up here in just a minute. 20 seconds away from the zone closing in. You can see it will be pulling that underside team of GG. They're either going to be focused and let these teams fight it out, but either way, the team on the inside, they will have to come out, and there will be all eyes on them. But it's GG, the team that's underneath. They have the positioning that I think both of these teams, or all 3 of these teams, would like to have. They also have the KP that a lot of these teams would like.
Oh my lord, and it's Odin at the end. The one squad that was just grouped up, sitting with that crypto, sitting with the caustic. Now they have got their time to shine. They have gotten it, honestly, the easy way around all game, but this is where it gets really difficult, and they need to perform now, especially against Eternal, who, to be fair, they are really chunking out on the other side.
Yeah, I believe there was a huge frag grenade. Now, I kind of wonder, Eternal is not shielding. They might be out of those meds. Okay, there we go. One of them got shield off. Meanwhile, Jellied is actually, I believe, going to go down here. They're going to try and pop this res, see if they get aggressive. Jibby ult out in defense. Zone closing in. 1 minute and 15 seconds left. They're going to try and heal up. Meanwhile, they also have the EMP, but after they use that Jibby ult, they no longer have that EMP combo.
Unfortunate for them, but it's the one thing they needed to do to stay alive. GG still sitting on red shields, plenty of ammo down here in the best spot to win the game right now. They've got the Valk ult, should they need to reposition, but it's more about farming kills as people come to them right now. Triple take from above from Shades, doesn't find a kill, but it finds some damage as they almost lose a member due Eternal with the dome just barely keeping them alive. They hold on to that EMP as well. Shades is waiting for a better time to use it to knock out the shields as Odin rain fire down from above.
Yeah, Odin Gamer's going to have to drop down GG down below, and you have to come down. Who's going to be the one to peek over? You've got to come over this. Remember, there is a caustic, so this is going to be troublesome. They also have the drone available. It was destroyed. See if they try and open with this. Arcstar going up, but they drop down now. It's going to be a bubble fight. The Eva shots coming out. They are missing right now for Dope, and now here they come through.
GG.
There's going to be the shots down into the zone. 1v1, and that's going to be GG with a huge victory there. Major clutch by Dope to give them not only a victory, Dia, but a massive amount of KP to go with it.
And it's so true. They cleaned up so much in the end there, and again, it was another team that was able to play the low ground and have great control of the game. I don't know how they do it, but we talked about how GG are a team that can pair great shot calling with amazing micro, and man oh man, did they prove that in the biggest way in Game 3. We crossed that halfway mark, and they get themselves that win, and like we were talking about, the difference between 10th place and first place right now was just a win.
I mean, I tried to set this up because the low ground in there's two spots that are really important. There's one on the west side near that staircase where we saw Borgir that does tend to end there. Playing the low ground in that staircase, there's boxes and stairs, a lot of head peaks, and a lot of cover there. That was one of those spots to where sometimes it ends right up on top of that. Then the ones underneath that are outside, there's one spot. There's only one team that can really hold underneath, and GG was able to do that. And they moved into position. Then they were able to get aggressive and flank around. They had the utility to be able to do that. And they were able to manufacture even more kills and things like that. But if you are that one team in either of those spots, if that zone does pull towards that low ground and the outside, you are in that dominant position because it's so hard to push. It's so hard to go because anybody that's coming out, you're going to be the target. And so GG actually had phenomenal positioning. We know there was a dominant position up top. Had that ended up top, of course, our Crypto Caustic team would have done well. But you can see the differences of playing those and where the end zone is. And that's the beauty of RNG, man, is that you never know which it's going to be. Look, Odin Gamers could have won that. Don't get me wrong. But GG, they were on fire that game.
Yeah, it was just that perfect mix of execution in the end. It's gotten them a lot of points. We're going to get the chance to see how many once we return from a break. Welcome back, folks, as, well, J-Ho, we've crossed the halfway mark, and the biggest question that I've always got coming out of Game 3 when we got 6 games in the day is, who's in the lead? So, how about we answer that question right now?
I want to know the answer to that as well. I mean, I think we've seen a pretty competitive 3 games so far to where there wasn't a huge disparity between some of these teams. But after last game, Dia, GG had 18 KP. And for a first place finish, that is 30 points. They will definitely be catapulting their way, if not to the top, but in one of our top positions. That was a monster game.
Oh, for sure. And one of the things that we sort of mentioned, or I think we alluded to a little bit earlier, is GG were one of the 2 teams in lobby today that managed to double up on wins yesterday. It was them and 69 IQ. 69 IQ, they've been having rough games. GG, however, have not slowed down since semis, and it's paying off. Look at that lead.
They had one game yesterday where they had 14 kills in one of those first place finishes, but for the total of the day, they had 24 kills. They just got 18 in one game, putting them almost on their total kill total of yesterday, and they've definitely put up a lot today as well. And the fact that they now have this big of a lead, I don't like anybody else can have a big game and all of a sudden like you're second or third, and there's a huge difference between first and second on days like today where the first place finisher goes to the Pro League. So that does have a major impact to vault them forward, but now they need to consistently perform and maybe if they can get another win and double up like they did yesterday, they might have already secured their spot. They do still have some work to do, but they've definitely put themselves comfortably in the lead.
You know, you say consistent performance, and I can't help but think about Top Dogs, because I was expecting much bigger things from them today than we've ended up seeing. You can see them, or rather you can see them a few seconds ago in the stats, actually ranking quite low for today, which is surprising given that they were consistently landing in not even top 3, but top 2 just 24 hours ago. And for this shift to have occurred, for them to have dropped so drastically, has to do with 2 things. 1, potentially a little bit of exhaustion, but 2, the immense level up that this lobby has undertaken.
Yeah, I think that this lobby definitely is kind of what people expected, right? This is kind of more of what they're used to, but also with the pressure being so high and the intensity being so high, I mean, there's a lot riding on this. I mean, there's more riding on this game and on these Mondays than they've ever had in any other game. Some of these players didn't get to compete in a lot of the big tournaments. So for these games, I think absolutely the pressure is there. You know, I hate to keep going back to this, but Bearclaw and Succubus, Bearclaw's won 2 of the last 3. They lost the first one. It's those early fights that I wonder, at what point do you shift your focus? Because I feel like it's hurting both teams and not helping either.
Yeah, it's so difficult to depart from your landing spot, but at the same time, I think that a lot of these teams will recognize that it is necessary. And interestingly enough, Bearclaw, I know, can do it. I've seen them leave Geyser before, and they're opting not to in this particular round, I think because of just exactly what you talked about, the fact that they've won 2 out of the 3, and I think they're feeling a little bit more consistent right now. Succubus, the ones that are really pressured to make a change. We'll see if they end up doing it this game, as right now I don't see anybody headed to Geyser with Bearclaw.
Yeah, it looks like they might be changing, and that could be a sign of things. And I think this is good for both teams. I don't think either one of them are really benefiting from it. So we'll get a much different look. But look at this deal. We've already got a scan. We've had 3 southern zones. We now have one that's going to be pulling more towards that survey area or that no-name area. And both of those play very differently. But these northern teams are finally catching a break, including this team right here, 69 IQ. Our top performing team in the semifinals has had a very rough day. Now they'll have a little bit less rotation. Maybe they can get something going in their favor because they have a lot of catching up to do.
They finally got that 3rd player in as well, which they were missing last game and kept them from having the comeback that I'm sure that they know they can have. Astralis holding on up towards this north as well are going to have a very different game than they had last time because, don't get me wrong, Astralis can very clearly play the southern zones. We saw them in dominant positions around Lava Siphon, but this specific game, we're going to end up seeing how they play the zone, and that for some teams can put them in enough of an uncomfortable position that it can shake up their place in the standings.
It's the teams that we see at the top, the teams that have primarily been towards the bottom end of the map on how they perform now. And I think that's going to be a big talking point as this unfolds. And how many teams, if this does pull the survey, you know there's going to be a lot of teams, especially these caustic teams, they're going to be looking to take some of those buildings, and they'll be able to hold them through and through. I mean, it's almost unpushable at that point, but it's those teams that play epicenter. It's the teams that play near the train, near the tunnel. It's the teams that play on the edge. I love the edge. There's certain teams that play the ridge, I guess the high ground ridge coming between epicenter and frag, and that point there near the balloon. Teams that hold that area tend to generate a lot of KP, but then they have the tougher rotations because it's easy to get third parties. So you have to be very clean with getting those kills. You have to get wipes clean. You can't afford to drop people. You have to have certain comps to run that if you do have that risk, and most teams running the Jibby. So it does make it a little bit easier, but oh my goodness, that was a laser beam that just destroyed Fig.
Yeah, that looks like a charged rifle on steroids that was being wielded, and oh my lord, Clean's loot is ridiculous as well. 2 gold and a purple when the first ring hasn't even begun closing yet. I mean, their rotation is on point, their loot is on point, and honestly, their KP is going to take a big boost as well.
Yeah, this is a team the fact that we haven't seen them do as well as I think, but they're like right on the fringe every time, because this is a team that is much more aggressive than some of the other teams that we've seen. They're on the prowl. They have been picking up KP. I think they just haven't really been blessed with a lot of zones. We saw them earlier when they were in the harvester area and had to make their way in. This is a team that can frag out at any moment, and they've already gotten off to a hot start here, and they can now hold one of these higher areas and look for more KP. And when you have double gold, you can be much more aggressive with poking because you don't have to use as many resources. I think this is a team that has potential to pop off right here.
Certainly do, especially as they move over near this climatizer area. There's plenty of teams that are going to be wanting to loot up that may be a little bit slow on the rotation. That's the other thing, is that, you know, I talk about Clean as this team that has a really big game plan, and I'm expecting them, of all squads, to be the ones that really push the envelope when it comes to when they are moving, which is such a underrated and yet important aspect of Apex, is when you depart from your landing POI to move into the zone, to pressure other teams. And it's those small differences that can really start to pile up. For right now, though, we're seeing other things starting to pile up in the form of teams around Survey Camp.
Yeah, we know Odin was one of the teams last game running that Crypto and Caustic, probably running a similar comp here. And when you have the Caustic, you look for those buildings with the doors. Teams are going to look, if they have the available resources, where you have Oldest Forever on the Valkyrie, you're going to be looking to take those doors off over time. You don't want to have to use grenades, but if you do, you want to make sure and open that up, especially versus a Caustic team. It exposes them in ways that they're not comfortable with dealing with. They want to keep those doors locked. They want to keep things in place. It doesn't mean that they're going to be easy to push, but you can see those doors are already being knocked off of Borgears, who's also running a Caustic.
I spy with my little eye that Odin squad, the Caustic with the Crypto sitting up here alongside Succubus, interestingly enough. So Succubus, Borgir, and excuse me, I've lost my thought already. Odin already sitting up in these spots, and again, probably one of the better places for Odin, who do like to run that Crypto, who do have a beacon within scan distance of them.
So you will see the EMP go out early. If you want to charge up your shields, how about dropping 150 damage onto 3 people that you know can't dodge it? So that's a really easy way to get some damage in and build up those shields. So you will see a couple of early Crypto EMPs for those purposes.
We may actually see some of the teams that are up here as well just dropping their shields to try and avoid that. It's something that when you're holing up, a lot of teams will opt into, but that's more likely going to be an even later and later game thing when teams start newly arriving, when we see people holding weird spots like the crane that they can't afford to be pushed off of. For right now, Clean playing edge around here I do really like, especially because they're playing with the edge of the map at their backs, so there's no real pressure from behind, and they just get to play straight up aggression.
Yeah, that right there, if the zone does pull up there, is by far the best spot on the northern end. Meanwhile,
Oh,
we've got
Lord.
some action going on up here. This is on the ridge, that new building that's at the top, just north or just south of Climatizer, north of Epicenter. This has been a huge point of contention for a lot of teams because they're not used to having a building here. They're used to just playing around terrain and high ground and head peaks. Now there's a whole different element to this, and that bridge that people come in off of, it's all about playing the staircase. And we know you don't see a lot of teams try to hold that bridge for long. It's just impossible. We do see maybe some sneaking up here from Clean. Just trying to see, is anybody getting knocked? They're going to be reading the kill feed.
They are waiting for that third party, the juicy KP that can follow. Well, 69 IQ, again, are running with their third member this time and have the zone pulling to them. So the best role they could have, this is where 69 IQ really need to have a pop-off game because they've been caught a little bit lacking today. And now with gold, with purple, and with blue at their backs and the very center of Skyhook belonging to them, it's where they can start to pick up a few errant knaves that run by.
Yeah, I'm waiting until we can sneak in on one of these teams with a beacon scan. One of those crypto teams that can sneak in one of those scans for us. Is they're going to find out with the zone going forward. They already had their beacon scan, but the next beacon that they have, it's all the way in the zone back on the other side of Skyhook. So they're just going to have to try and wait for these zones to close in, figure out how they can rotate in. With two buildings being held, you can see one on the right, one at the bottom of your screen. That's where 69 IQ has to go through, and they've been graced with one of those teams departing via Valcolt.
I wonder where they're going as well, because Signal Lunaire is holding train, so you can't really go there. And just one of them poked their heads out earlier, but it seems like Valcolt is going to take you far, and Signal Lunaire in the kill feed is being wiped out as I speak.
This is a very, very interesting rotation. This is... I mean, I'm a little surprised. I'm not surprised at the fact that they know that trying to push through there, and maybe they find that there's a little less pressure to come through the chokes on this end. So maybe this works out a little bit better for them. The biggest surprise here, when you look at this map, the beacon building just south of the tunnel, left of the train tracks, normally a team is holding that building or at least that train area. Nobody's holding that right now. That's prime real estate for this zone if it does pull that way. I wouldn't be surprised. One of our teams is going to make it there soon. They're going to be pleasantly surprised with like, oh, we'll just take this for now.
Yeah, seems like Top Dogs are in prime position to take that, but instead are choosing to play for control of the open ground around what used to be Train Yard, was now Landslide. Astralis pushing in here, have found plenty of damage. He should be able to pick up some extra kills. Patmir, always a monster on the Mastiff, finds 88 damage, but ends up going down. Sabron gonna follow him, and now it's just up to Hestia, the one caustic they have to finish off the kills, and that he does. Astralis trust in their team, but now could still be taken out.
Yeah, they needed that to be clean. There's a reason why you'll see players go into the firing range and they will practice bubble fights. And look who it is, 69 IQ finally making their presence felt. They actually clean up on those kills with those knocks. That KP is in their favor. They're going to turn around. They do have the drone up in the air trying to scout out who's going to be coming by. See if we get an EMP, as it looks like they're being pushed. Nothing breaking out right now, but big pickup here for 69 IQ in the KP and in the positioning department.
Yeah, now they're the ones that get this advantage of being able to hold in trains and all of the loot boxes that are strewn in front of them. This is actually really big because, I mean, not only did they get to pick up those 2 KP, but now they've got a really, really flexible spot and a place that you can rotate out of even without a Valkyrie. There's a balloon right behind them if it ever comes to that.
Yeah, there's the departure to the east. There's the zip line in the low ground playing underneath the train tracks. If it does pull up there, that's a really good position. And then, as you mentioned before, with the teams that are on that far north side, you can't really be pushed from many angles. So for them, it's going to be good. Meanwhile, AAS has a good look at a Valcolt here and a good look at some bullets not connecting.
It's okay. You gotta try. You gotta attempt.
Oh,
you gotta do your best. Yeah, exactly. Hey, it's definitely gonna feel a little bit let down there, but no harm, quite literally, no foul, as they'll be holding on for now. Still looking to make their way inside of the next zone, is where they've been holding for a while. Is going to very quickly become a faux pas in just 2 zones as things close in around Epicenter, and that northern focus, that survey camp, really becomes where things are about to go down. We talk about the bridge between round 3 and round 4. It's coming up sooner than you might think.
I don't know if it was Clean that did make its way up there. We didn't have the names on that, but Hestia was taken out on that far north side. So whichever team is holding that north zone did pick up 1 free KP from the leftovers of that. So they're going to be fully out. And so a team on the north side should still theoretically be in. We'll get a look at these teams starting to rotate in. And here's a look at GG eating damage, our game 3 winners and our leaders on the day. They're going to be one of the last teams in. And man, they are being punished by the zone. It looks like Kick just in front of them might be exiting. See if Kick sees them on scan and maybe jumps back down to take a fight.
Yeah, I mean, you genuinely might just pick up a few easy KP there because the health bars are so ridiculously low. But Kick instead are going to take that Valkyrie ult over to the north, try and hold an area where they can push down into the train tracks and be able to use that charged rifle that we talked about earlier to get a little bit more damage, push themselves up to those red shields as top dogs fire at their backs.
Yeah, that's the building that you were mentioning that they would approach, and they're going to hold that. We do got to see where this next zone is going to be. If it does pull towards survey, which I believe a quick look does. And man, that northern ridge that's up there, 69 IQ, they're going to be in the corner here. The team on that northern ridge, they are in a perfect position, at least for now, and that is a great sight to see. I mean, this pulling this far north, it's very, very beneficial. And this is the team we knew coming into the day as well, Dia. They were the teams that everybody knew from yesterday with the top points. Finally seems to be in a favorable position. It looks like the team that is on that northern area is actually Red Dragon.
And they've been really interesting. They've been a really interesting team to watch today. Have been performing quite consistently, and now have a really good spot that does give them high ground. Well, Bear Claw, unfortunately for them, seem like they're portaling into a little bit of a sticky situation on the receiving end of a lot of fire, along with Tyler, as the shot from above is just a warning for now, but it's still going to let Paradise pop the ultimate, get the scan, assure themselves safety on the reset.
Yeah, I think that they had to. This is one of those things where sometimes you got to fight your way through, but right now, Tryhard holding the mouth of the tunnel. They get some shots in, but a longbow comes out in return. Meanwhile, ASCII is going to be the first one to go down. Bearclaw is going to try and recuperate from here, but they are under assault, and it looks like more teams are coming to join the party.
Tryhard in trouble right now after eating that longbow. Still are going to be surviving as the poison takes away on the low ground. Bearclaw are well and truly committing into this, trying to finish off those last couple kills, and they end up getting them with the Wraith Q barely saving Tyler FPS, who's now on Flesh. Will they get pushed or not? Because the shots are coming in from that western side, and they've lost yet another Paradise, the last one standing. Does he just run to survive? He cannot. He gets taken down by Kick.
Yeah, Kick, we saw that rotation in. They found a way to move their way into the tunnel, and that's going to grant them some KP. Bearclaw did get a couple of KP of their own before they went out, but they won't be getting positioning points. We're down to 13 teams left. Oh, take that back, 12 teams left. This looks like 69 IQ showing up in that kill feed as well. See the damage that's been done there. Meanwhile, we've got one even dying to the ring.
Unfortunate for him. You know what? May he rest in peace. GG, however, will carry on any legacies with style as they end up picking up the care package. We'll see what was contained in that as well. Evidently, it was a Kraber, as an instant knock comes in from that.
Yeah, Odin, GG, of course, our leaders, and they got the knock, but it is Odin that's going to be in there. Right now, it looks like they're going to play at the edge of zone. That northern area, I am surprised more teams are staying in here, but I think now that they see the zone, 69 IQ, I take that back. I'm bamboozled by the tags on some of these players, but 69 IQ still living in that zone. There's a place on that northwest of the next zone that's coming in, which is that underpass. You can kind of see the trails. That right there and that back corner are so powerful and so dominant. 69 IQ will look to be rotating towards there if another team wants to make their way in. That back ledge and then moving up into that corner, those are prime positions. Meanwhile, we can see why they're not going just yet. They are popping off, getting some scout shots in, but they're going to have to turn in about 20 seconds, and it might be sooner just to try and hold that position.
Keeping the pressure on for right now. Haven't shown themselves around that edge just yet, but rounding the corner as 17 seconds are left are going to pull the late trigger on the rotation. You can see Red Dragon are waiting for them. It could be a fight for that spot if Red Dragon have also, like you, identified the best spot to be.
Yeah, it looks like they're now parking themselves under that bridge, and I can tell you it is almost impossible. Red Dragon, a team that if you come out too far towards the west, they're going to see you. So I don't think they're going to come out. Meanwhile, Eternal, one of those teams that's going to be holding a lot of that terrain. Bow check out here, not something we see every day, not connecting just yet, but there's going to be some damage coming through with the Volt. Not many shots left in that bow check, so you know they're going to be looking to try and get some kills coming in, get a gun swap.
Yeah, Volt really effective there. I like that he swapped over to it, went, you know what? This just isn't vibing for me, and I wouldn't be surprised if off that next box he ends up just swapping the weapon entirely, as at this point in the game, Bocek providing surprisingly little Eternal. Very close to an EMP right there that did end up getting canceled, as right around the side, we're getting into the crypto scan to give us a better idea of what's going on. Odin being forced out of their building finally are going to struggle holding on as they don't have shades anymore and are in the middle of some caustic gas. But with this, Mastiff could be able to fight back. Aiton does end up finding a lot of damage, but no knocks as his teammate tries to finish him off, though. Nemesis is going to take them down.
Meanwhile, Kick holding the high ground might be able to shoot down on some of these. I don't think anybody's focusing their attention. They are somewhat exposed from certain angles, but it doesn't look like anybody's focusing them yet. They're trying to heal up before their next move, but now all these teams are going to be looking to try and play some of these rocks, and it looks like Kick does drop down, get some KP of their own, throw down the bubble. There's a lot to loot here, so they're going to be up. They are not in the zone, so they still will have to fight their way through with an alternator and some nades. It looks like they're going to try and get aggressive on this building, maybe try and take something out of sight from the rest of the teams, but we are down to 8 left. Meanwhile,
nice.
90 is going to go down. That's going to be the Kraber kicking in. GG is going to go ahead and finish that off, sending Kick down to a 2-man.
It's the finish. That's just absolutely deadly at this point. You talked about how there are angles that they're vulnerable from, and this is just awful when everybody in the lobby now is aware of their positioning, and you're slowly getting sandwiched in along this circle. Hierka is holding up the shield just to buy a little bit of safety, and you honestly can't go for this res.
GG is popping off with the Kraber, another knock and Thirst. They are dominating teams right now, down to 7 squads left, only 18 players dead inside one of those teams. They were game 1 winners. They would certainly like to catch back up as GG has a 20-point lead on second place. And right now, GG has been having another good performance as we reach the mid-game here.
There's no way there's no way this res ends up working out. This is truly a dead inside move, as they are betting that everybody else is going to be focused elsewhere, and it's risky as all heck. But Kazakh is going to be spawning back in. They've got the mobility to move upwards with this Loba and Valkyrie. If they can just get to a loot box, they've got that third member all ready to go. Eternal under a lot of pressure right now. They've dropped the Dome and the Gibby ultimate as well. It's bought them space, it's bought them time, it's bought them kills, and 69 IQ are benefiting as well. This is chaos, absolute chaos, J-How.
The edge of the zone has been exactly where you're trying to gatekeep. Eternal has done that, but a lot of teams were punished for doing so. The team up on the north, Red Dragon, 69 IQ, they have sight lines on everybody. It's no surprise. They're 2 of the last 3 teams left with only 1 member from our third team. It looks like Red Dragon will move up. Will 69 IQ try and make a play off this? Look at this, Jinxie getting very aggressive. Red Dragon, they do have armor swaps from all of those kills, so they've got that in their favor. It looks like there's actually 2 members left from that other team, as 69 IQ and Red Dragon prime positions have now put themselves in the top 3.
They are being camped at that other portal, though, so with this position that they've rotated over to, this is where they're staying. They push down to try and move themselves to the top 2 squads. Do end up picking up those kills very shortly, but are being pushed. 69 IQ is coming in over the top. We just moved to 2 squads, and the resets are just not fast enough as damage gets piled in from 69 IQ to take the win.
My goodness, when you saw that push, I mean, it looked like they all had octane stem packs going there. They were sprinting to third party, and they cleaned up, got themselves some KP, and our best performing team from yesterday finally puts themselves on the board with a big victory here in game number 4. They desperately needed this. We mentioned, Dia, maybe it was the zones, the positioning. We know they only dropped with 2 players in one of the games, But this is what happens when it's a northern zone. Different teams are able to excel a little bit differently.
Yeah, it's a really, really big impact of that poll. We do still see some consistent performers, though. Kick, Red Dragon still showing up really late. Even Gigi, you talked about popping off with that Kraber. So they're not falling too far behind. It's still a game of can 69 IQ catch up now that they've finally found their first win in the second half. We're going to take a look at the points, see how they're measuring up right after a break. Welcome back, folks, as well, we're prepping to go into Game 5. It's the penultimate game of the day, and it's not too often I get to use that word, J-House, so you better believe I'm excited about it.
I'm used to it. Everybody else may not be.
You're another kind of man, another kind of human. You've transcended into the upper echelons of the English language, much like these players have today in Apex. Transcendence has been something that we've seen time and time again, be it mostly strategic, but sometimes even just straight up in the gunplay, just perfect aim, lasers. We've seen it all throughout these 4 games. We're going to get to see it again in the 5th and 6th. And I want to take a look going into those games at where folks are landing. This is in Game 4. 69 IQ very much coming out on top there, and a well-deserved win goes to them.
Yeah, I think for them, I mean, look, if they can have 2 monster games, then yeah, they can probably look to secure their spot, but they have to have repeat performances. I think not just 1 more time, but 2 more times. Meanwhile, our first place team finished 4th last game with 10 points. They had a 20-point lead prior to this. Another good game for them. Consistency for them can be the difference of them being first place. If they can have 2 more consistent games, that's big for them. They now have an 18-point lead. Eternal had a nice game there. Nemesis, they're kind of in the mix, and you have a lot of teams around that 30-point threshold that can definitely make their way in, but there's a lot of ground to cover on GG. If GG can get 10 points this game and 10 points the next game, they're in perfect position to make their way into ALGS. So these other teams, they need some big games, and I think for a lot of these teams, they also need to see GG go out early, so teams that might be in those areas might get more aggressive on a team like GG.
Yeah, there's a chance that we see some serious targeting going down, especially by some teams that we're expecting to definitely play a little bit more aggressive. I'm looking specifically at that 5th place spot, Kick, as before today, I definitely knew them as the team that would just straight up run in. They would kill you no matter what. They would simply outplay you in the moment, and they would take that bet 100% of the time. Today, they've been playing a lot more reserved, and I don't want to say that's bad, but it's not what I'm used to, and it's not what a lot of the fans are used to either. Their spot has been usurped by not just 1, not just 2, but 4 squads that are up ahead of them, and they can't be happy with that. They can't be sitting back right now, and I expect to see some pretty, forgive the pun, high-octane games from them.
Well, I mean, there's a level of risk that you take to be a high frag team, and we've seen some of those teams, most notably major pushers in EU, 2B1C in NA. We know those teams to not just be good teams, especially 2B1C as of late. They've been an absolute monster team in NA. They didn't even make it into the finals today. And some of these teams, with every bit of risk that you take, there is a bit of reward with it, but there is very little margin for error. And as these teams get closer and closer in this, there's much more activity around the things that you want to do. So it's much more difficult, I think, for these teams to play as aggressive, and there's a delicate balance. I mean, we look at a team in NA, Benchwarmers, that we'll see later today. That's a team that seems to have struck the balance of fragging out and positioning. It's very difficult to do, and there's a reason why there's only going to be so many teams in ALGS, because you will get the best of the best, and this is your ultimate proving ground. This is the trial that if you want to get there, you need to figure out how to manufacture kills and placements in a very difficult lobby.
Yeah, right now GG seems to have the best balance of that. We'll see if any other teams can step up and take that level of frags versus positioning to an even higher high in this lobby. But for right now, as we wait to drop in, one of the other big determiners that we've learned today is those zones. We've got to be on the lookout for where we're pulling, because that alone will determine the success of some squads. And right now, with a very central one, with second zone pulling all the way over near staging, I really am kind of lost as to who is in the best position, because it's very central. I feel like this is the most even thing we could have gotten.
Yeah, there's 3 prime areas that you're going to see teams gravitate towards. It's going to be Harvester. It's going to be that building that's there on the hill that everybody calls different names for different people. But staging probably has the most available real estate for that zone that you're going to be looking at. So teams will be looking to play around the edge of that. Teams that will be looking to hold the edge of the corner going towards landslide. Those are key areas where you're going to see a lot of teams try and get to early. And if they don't get too early, they're going to be playing around those edges, looking through the different chokes to get there. And I actually think that we'll see a lot of of teams, barring any crazy fights on the outside, there's a lot of spots for teams to get into. But there are very big differences between the harvester side versus staging side. And depending on where that pull is going into zone 3, I think that is going to be like the bigger shift where we normally see it zone 4 to 5. We're probably going to see it more between zone 3 to 4.
Yeah, especially the sort of zones that are possible right centering around the bridge are really, really exciting. I want to see if we can get some of those, as right now we get a nice scenic view of Harvester and Odin, interestingly enough, already rotating out of there. I've been surprised, honestly, for a squad that really likes to hole up. A lot of times we see teams sort of roll the dice. They sit there and they go, all right, well, wherever we landed, that's the best spot. We're going to hole up in here till things get bad. Odin, they run fast, but when they get to where they're going, man, oh man, they just sit there.
That was almost terrible. That was almost real bad. GG, our leaders going into game number 5, seem to be on the brunt end of the other team and maybe their own frag grenade a little bit, but they do make it out somewhat for now. You know, they definitely want to get back. They do not want to go out early in any form or fashion.
Certainly not. As right now we're getting perhaps a little bit of a push here as well. Red Dragon want to crush Odin where they sit, but Odin remarkably good at sitting still right now, so this may be a little bit over aggressive. We'll see how it ends up playing out, as right now Odin are really not too bothered. They've even got their next member back in, but nobody's been able to take him out, and Red Dragon are just kind of sitting here around the outside of this building going, I guess we'll leave.
They're trying to get a different angle because GG is that team that we saw coming from staging. They're playing that zip. And so that right there is probably what is forcing Red Dragon to retreat more than anything else, as well as Kick. I think we saw some shots from GG going towards Kick and towards Red Dragon. Red Dragon forced to retreat towards that southern end. That's going to be the position they try to play. Didn't get the KP. They had an advantage. There was a res on the side of Odin, but they weren't able to pick up any KP.
No, but this is still good for them. The fact that Odin managed to get themselves back up to full strength before the pressure really came down, and were even able to survive a push down that one, really going to be good for them. And it's a good thing they didn't lose that caustic, because that is no small part of how you hold that building.
Yeah, I think if the roles are reversed in any way, not having the caustic would have been the most doomed part of it. Meanwhile, Australis, despite having 3 KP, they were unable to recover the banner of their third member. So a great start with mixed emotions. I think you'd rather have 0 KP in a full squad as opposed to 3 KP in a duo this early. But we'll see if they can find their way in, maybe towards the later end, maybe frustrated here.
Yeah,
communication.
Definitely a little frustration. You got to get out with some physical exercise, with some squats. That's what it's really all about, as they're going to be waiting on the rotation, is right now with a only 2-man squad. You're not too pressured to get into the ring. You do have the Valkyrie if you needed to, but right now I feel like when you're down members, you're way more comfortable playing edge. You're way more comfortable picking off the stragglers, the ones that are desperately trying to re-engage, and that's why Astralis, a team that has been playing really well inside of zone, is taking a little bit longer this time without a member.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is when you talk about edge zone play, if there's one character you want to play edge with, it's Valkyrie. I mean, if you want to play on the outside looking in, one character that can instantly get you in, that's the one. So it is a bit of a double-edged sword, but that's a drone gone bye-bye.
Yeah. I don't even know if the crypto on the upper end knew that was happening. It just all of a sudden his drone disappeared and he's sitting there like, what has occurred? Red Dragon definitely holding on to any information that they can. I'm glad to see they've gotten themselves back in a safe space after the risky position they were in, trying to push earlier on. But for right now, with a longbow on the low ground, they're not going to be actually able to do all too much. This is not the best position for the loadout that Carry Rubik has.
Yeah, you know, Harvester tends, when multiple teams go here, they all kind of just look at each other a lot, try and take pot shots. I don't think there's a whole lot of activity. If the zone pulls here, they're all in great spot. But if the zone does pull further west, these teams actually probably have the more chaotic of the fights, because you have to fight going uphill the other direction. There's the ravine for a little bit of cover, but everything else is on the upper hill. We saw a kick. I don't know if they're still on that hill. That hill is really good in the late game. It can be somewhat difficult to hold in these earlier zones, but that one on top of the hill does dictate a lot. That is a lot of shield cells, by the way.
Yeah, that's an odd amount.
That is an abundance. I mean, it's like the whole lobby came here to drop their shields. But I do think if it does pull left, the Harvester teams have much more difficult fights. They have to fight each other while also potentially being shot in the back from high ground. And so these fights, if the zone pulls left.
Yeah, we saw it. We see just there a little bit of pressure coming into the team on the high ground as they're being the target of an EMP. We're going to get a chance to look at this from a third-party perspective, going all the way up the stairs, as Harvester very quickly going to become a place that is home to a lot of gunfire. And for right now, I don't even want to say that I'm expecting somebody to try and take the high ground, to take that hill, because it's definitely a spot that scales. And I know that's weird to say because it's just terrain, but that spot becomes best when you can play with the zone at your back. And taking it right now could just make you a target from every angle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the same thing for here. The reason these teams don't fight in Harvester is because many teams coexist, one in the top, one in the bottom, and then you have each strand that's going to be like that, where you can have two teams, then you have one team in the mid. But you can't really force a fight. You force any type of fight, the other team is going to take your position and then try and third party you in the back, which is why Harvester tends to be a much slower paced game for a lot of these teams. And I think this is what we're seeing here is you can get the grenades in, you can get the doors off, that way you can get some shots to build up, but nobody's really looking to be as aggressive. They're really just trying to get doors off. You can see all the doors are blown off this one, which means peeking is very rare and very limited for a team like Cigna now.
Yeah, that's exactly why they're sort of throwing the shield cells in. I'm sure they wish they had access to that low ground supply, but for right now, we're just going to be farming things up as they can. Maybe getting a little bit of an Evo in there. We see the consideration, but they're being pressured on the other side by, I believe, it was Tryhard that are holding the center of Harvester right now. And with Red Dragon on the low ground, and with Tryhard at their back, Signa Lunaire, definitely the embodiment of what is going to be a difficult rotation, depending on where that does end up pulling. We get a chance to look at 69 IQ, though, and they're the ones in a fight right now. No knocks just yet, but holding on to staging with all of their might.
Looks like they got one there. They're going to go ahead and use the bubble to make sure they can get the thirst. Maybe not the perfect placement. It gives them enough cover to secure that KP. They're going to look to recover back here in this building. The staging building is very difficult to push. They don't have a caustic like some of our other teams, but it is still a very good spot to hold. Also, one of our rare teams running an Octane, if not the only team at this point. So they do have the ability to close the gap on teams that are around them. But right now, it seems most of the attention focused towards the east.
Kind of funny to watch this, honestly, as 69 IQ, they're running the composition from the last ALGS, the one that everyone was taking, especially in NA, where, you know, people tend to have a little bit less legend diversity. Here in EU, we've already seen the Loba, we've seen the Crypto, and we've even seen some of the Seer as well. So people willing to experiment here, and that's something that 69 IQ definitely are holding out on. They want that consistency, the comp to take them to the top.
Well, we'll see if they can get there today, then sure, they've secured it. But starting tomorrow, when the legends get rebalanced, it might be a different story. There's a lot of people that are falling off of Octane already, and I don't even think that's going to be a regional thing. I think it's going to be a global thing. So I don't know if they don't qualify today, they'll probably be running a different comp next week. We'll find out.
That's why you got to qual today. Qual well Octane is still good, guys. The 69 IQ, they've still got hope. They managed to pull that win out in Game 3, and hey, they can do that 2 more times. They can win it, but it's going to be a tall order. Nemesis right now, though, the squad running the Seer are on the push, and it's an aggressive one as well. They do end up getting a knock. They should be able to thirst this one, but still having teammates around. We're going to be playing a little bit more carefully, especially inside of that Nox gas.
I mean, Z and B took a lot of damage from that caustic gas, and the way it scales and it keeps ticking, I think it actually ticked pretty high. There's going to be a thirst there to make sure and secure some of that KP. So our Seer team picking up a little bit of KP to get them started, try and keep their name in the mix.
Doing all right for now. We'll check in on Nemesis, see if they've landed themselves in top 10, but every point matters, as we talked about it earlier. The way that this qualifier works, of course, you want to get that first place spot. You want to qualify for ALGS now, but if you do miss out today, the small little bits of points that you do get do add up, because we only have 4 qualifiers, 4 first placers, and then the top 16 teams in terms of points from every preseason qualifier, those are the ones that get picked up next.
If you are a consistent team, you have a much higher chance of booking your ticket to ALGS next year. So that is definitely something a lot of these teams are mindful of. EMP still does damage to the shield even when dropped, but does kind of take away some of that free damage that you get off of the characters.
It's going to be an unfortunate amount of shields thus to expend, especially as Signa Lunaire, who still have Red Dragon at the bottom of the stairs right here, still don't have access to the treasure trove, but are sitting on a few attachments that they can use. Dead inside, interestingly enough, despite running a Loba, are running a little bit low on loot and low on health as well. Stanny falls to half HP, but is going to be able to survive for right now. We'll keep our eyes on the kill feed as Succubus, panning over to them, have made a push in through the tunnel and seem to be all right. Well, Morning Stars and not so much. Sitting at staging is the place you want to be, but not with the people you want to be there with.
Especially when you're on your own. This zone, though, it's just hovering the west side of Harvester and basically the majority of staging, so these teams don't have to move yet. It will be that zone 3 to 4 rotation that's going to be very different, and it's a 1v1. Borgir does have both beacons. If he can win this fight, might be able to get the res off. So a 1v1, Wingman versus Flatline. You can see we have the view. He does not. Does hold the area. Going to go ahead and pop some of these, delay any type of push if he does get cracked. But trying to peek through. Oh, another team's getting involved in this. That might help. If they have a Wraith Q out, that's going to be their way to safety. There it is.
Borgir trying to throw some extra gas over there to delay any further pushes, but this 1v1 is going to have to wait as the honorable 1v1 was disrupted, instead making it a, I don't know how many versus 1, and you got to disengage from that. It's not cool.
It's not going to happen. That's for sure. Kick, our team, we mentioned, and you mentioned the scaling part of this. This position becomes so strong as the game goes on, but it is difficult in zones around 2, 3. Gets a little easier in round 4 because there's less teams that are going to be alive, which means less third parties and teams are going to try and take specific spots. It's much more difficult to control all the teams that are rotating through, which is why you see them taking a defensive posture here. But make no mistake about it, this zone is trending towards the center between both of these POIs, and whether it ends up pulling here, Kick might be in prime position, but they will at some point have to fight and defend this spot. It is not impenetrable, so they will have a difficult task, but if they do succeed, lots of KP and placement, and that's a big if.
Yeah, very, very much so. Although this care package definitely going to help them out as they get first dibs on it and instantly crack it open. Valkyrie Q going to do quite a bit of damage to Uwako.
Oh, baby.
There's a Kraber right there. He picks that up, and I don't think you push this anymore because all of a sudden Uwako can take your head off.
Yeah, but you've got to hit your shots. If you miss with your Kraber shots, team can move up on you, but now this is pulling towards this. So teams in Harvester and in staging are all going to be looking to play underneath here, trying to play around that. Not even that Strand is in, which is where we last saw Bear Claw. We know that there's been a lot to materialize. Those chokes now closer to the tunnel. That's where it's at. But Hyarka is actually going to get knocked down. That is the Jibby, which means they don't have a bubble. I told you they would have to fight their way out. I didn't expect it to be this fast from a third party that far away. Kick now on their heels.
That's the thing. These snipers are doing ridiculous work from across the way, and it's keeping Kick from being able to play the game. Even the next zone, really the thing that they need to wait for. 50 seconds away is a long time to survive, and they need to not just survive, but thrive in order to maintain control of this hill, or they will very quickly tumble down, roll down, and unfortunately fall all the way out of game 5 if they're not careful. You can see Roger Bodger waiting over towards the north right now, as Bear Claw also want a piece of that sweet, sweet pie. There's a lot of teams that are looking in here. Odin, interestingly enough, on the south side, still exactly where they were 10 minutes ago.
I mean, talk about having the ultimate lifeline, the fact that they've been able to hold that spot. But Kick, I mean, I want to talk about this. One of them had a wingman,
Please.
One of them had a Kraber. You need to be able to put some shots onto somebody to put them back. Those, if they don't hit, you are going to get pushed, and so far we haven't really seen them light too much up, and now as a duo it's going to be difficult. I doubt they have a mobile, so now they're just going to have to hold here. 11 squads left, 29 left. This zone's coming in.
Please.
Not able to take out the drone, so the EMP does go off. They're going to have to try and fight for KP here and control that. That's Bear Claw on that.
They're getting pushed.
Kraber's going to miss, and when those shots don't hit, this is exactly what it looks like. Kick in a rough spot here, Dia.
Succubus are pushing up on them. The former home of some of these players on Kick right now. And Wako is going to very quickly ditch here. Wants to hold on to that. Kraber takes the meds right now, but they forfeit the high ground, and that should be enough for Succubus, who ended up pushing up on them, because that's the real goal, is taking control of the hill, not even getting the kills.
Well, they're going to be pinched right on this wall. They're going to try and get some KP down below. They do get a shot. See if they get ulted off of this. I don't think you can commit a Jibby ult yet, but they did use the EMP to take down the bubble. Could force them over the wall, but at the same time, they might just try and have to eat that. Meanwhile, Bear Claw did make it out of that northwest strand of Harvester. They're playing the low ground underneath that hill, and they are just in. I take that back. They have moved onto the top now, which is big for them. The crypto, they're going to get some valuable information here. They see that they have a lot to work with. They have now taken over. We mentioned how difficult that spot was to hold in zone 3 and 4. It's much more difficult, or much more easy, or much easier, if you will, to hold in zone 5 and 6, and that's where Bear Claw has put themselves.
Yeah, best possible spot for right now. They're going to be able to constantly check up with the crypto. You see them basically spamming it right now just to get the information, make sure that they're not being pushed from an unexpected angle, as this high ground, if you will, can sort of provide them with that perfect view. And it might even be able to get a little bit of a crack here. No EMP to take down that dome, but could have gotten some KP. Going to be constantly on the lookout.
Boy, this team, Nemesis, they are going to be in everybody's sight. They are the team that is running jump pad, because when you jump over this, you are on the low ground compared to that building on your right. So they do have an opportunity to potentially jump up and maybe get into position. We know the ravine is a good place, but only one team can really exist there. That's going to be key spots for a lot of teams to try and take over. Meanwhile, Succubus actually does have a spot in directly on that corner. There is an end zone that does pull towards that structure, that terrain, that big cliff, so they might actually be in a good spot. We do have a lot more to unfold. We're 30 seconds away from zone 5 closing. These teams got to come in with 7 teams left.
Succubus, I really like their positioning right now, but it's up to them. 69 IQ, and up on the high ground, we'll see if they can play disruption. 69 IQ are pushing down. They want to wipe out one of these threats, and they're doing it. No holds barred right now. The scans are coming down. The defensive bombardment is out, and they are full on going in. Really nice bubbles from both sides are going to delay the push, but we'll see for how long, as the Arc Stars don't do quite enough. In 69 IQ, they wrap all the way around to finish off the Succubi.
I mean, that is a monster play. We know they won last game. They are trying to rebound after a rough start today, and they're doing just that. 4 squads left. 1 team down in the ravine is going to exist. Meanwhile, Bear Claw and Top Dogs are going to hold, and they're going to see who is the king of the hill. But it does look like that zone might be pulling towards that on that northern end, that wall that I was talking about, which means 69 IQ has a perfect head peek. We'll find out when we get zoomed back in, but down to 4 squads left. 11 teams, the duo exist in the ravine, and that's the best spot to be if you are the 2-man squad, so that you can pop up and say, surprise, look who's home.
Yeah, Eternal definitely holding on to that surprise factor. A really good team in the semifinals. Haven't yet found a win in the finals in this chance to qualify for the ALGS Pro League. And they need that win right now to push them into top contention. Bear Claw trading shots back and forth. Running a little bit low on the ammunition, as you will, towards the end game. Are now going on the aggressive push with the Caustic here. They lay the barrel down behind and wrestle the high ground from Top Dog. The dome is going to end up dropping down. They're even doing a lot of work, but Tyler falling quite low for now is going to have to back off. Bear Claw lose one, they lose two. It's up to Tyler, and he can't do it as Eternal pop up. Top Dogs just won the fight up top. 69 IQ is pushing them, and Eternal can honestly take this from the back.
I mean, they've got a massive ult going down. That's going to hit multiple people. Top Dogs, they're going to be one shot each. If they can move up, one goes down, I believe, over. And now it's Top Dogs, the duo, versus 69 IQ, trying to get the back-to-back win, put themselves in position to take the ALGS spot here. It's game number 5, coming down 3 versus 2. 69 IQ pulling off here, and there's going to be one down on Top Dogs. 69 IQ, back-to-back victories after a slow start today, Dia, are all of a sudden putting themselves near the top of the heap.
Whew, we see what that looks like. Again, we get a zone that isn't bad for them, doesn't pull them away from home, and again, they're able to execute great shot calling from them, and really well done from, honestly, all 4 teams that were in that final zone. I think we got really intelligent pushes all around, and the fact that the duo of Eternal were able to survive all the way until second, absolutely huge for them in the standings.
Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I've got goosebumps right now thinking about 69 IQ because the fact that they top performer yesterday coming into today, atrocious games 1, 2, and 3, 4 points after game number 2. But now all of a sudden, back-to-back wins are coming for that top spot. I mean, if this is a comeback story, this is how it starts. And we have 1 game left to see how it's going to end.
Yeah, it is looking like the heroic return is being written before our eyes. We're going to take a chance to see how, or we're going to take a short break to see exactly how close they're getting up to that top spot because they've only got 1 game left to do it. We'll be right back in just a few minutes. Welcome back, folks, as we head into the last game of the day of the first round of the preseason qualifiers. The top team today will go on to the professional league. And Jay-How, you've been talking up 69 IQ. We've seen 2 games of how they've managed to pull out the wins. Let's see how dominant last game's win was.
Well, they got 9 kills and 21 points, and they had a mountain to climb to come back, and they are starting to do that. Meanwhile, Eternal, one of our consistent performers, is also there. And I think the biggest thing that we have to look at is not the top, but the lower end. 14th is GG, our team that has the lead on the day. They only got 2 points last game.
That's actually really scary, considering the fact that yesterday the tables were turned for GG. They had a really bad first 3 games and then pulled it back in the last, but it seems like here they've kind of traded off with 69 IQ, and I wonder if it's them being affected by the zones as much as all the other teams. Ooh. They do still hold on to that top spot, though, by a slim margin. Eternal pulling up the rear here. Remember, they managed to get into second just last game and are only 7 points behind. This team screams consistency.
Yeah, I think Eternal is, again, with the consistent nature of how they're performing, have the opportunity now to take over 69 IQ as well. When you start to look down at the 4th through 7th, all at 41 and 40 points respectively, that's a much bigger mountain to climb. You would have to have a monster game and a first place finish, and for GG to go out early or Eternal to go out early. I think those teams are more in the line of playing for the cumulative points that are going to exist over the 4 weeks of the preseason qualifiers. But I think right now we have one team that's sitting at top trying to hold on, and then you have 2 teams that are nipping on their heels between Eternal and 69 IQ. This is going to be I am excited for this finish for day number 1. I mean, to be able to witness somebody going in to a career-changing, game-changing, life-changing moment, to be able to go in, and you know that after that last game, GG, they're gonna be on edge a little bit. They know that they are the ones in top. Everybody's gunning for them.
And we've seen a lot of teams with that focus really have it pay off as well. I mean, the fact that they go out with 2 points is not a coincidence. You see one member of GG fall and you go, that's who we're pushing, because they are the biggest obstacle between us and being able to qualify. No matter what position you're in, that's the team that you have to topple. And it's honestly sort of a blessing in disguise for teams like 69 IQ, like Eternal, that they didn't overtake them going into this last round, because as big of targets as they now will be, they're still not if you'll forgive the pun, top dogs of the lobby.
I mean, GG actually had a really good positioning. We didn't get to see how they went out, but they were the team that was at staging. I don't know if it was 69 IQ that came in and cleaned them up, but GG was there in the beginning in that early fight near that farmhouse building, if you will, that I think some people call it. I don't know what word you have for it. I just say the building on the hill. But they ended up going out somewhere in all of that chaos, and I think that was a moment they would probably like to have back. I mean, just getting placements at that point when you have that big of a lead, I think is good. Playing a little bit more reserved, they chose not to. Maybe something went against them, but either way, I mean, the fact that you now have 69 IQ making these rotations, and we saw if this is another Southeast zone, maybe it's a different story. I mean, that's where GG has excelled in certain areas where 69 IQ hasn't. But the one team that has been doing well in all of those is Eternal, and they're sitting second place right now.
We'll have to keep our eyes on all those squads and how swingy they can be. Like we talked about, Eternal, the consistency that they bring is really, really good. But before we drop onto World's Edge, take a look at the center of your screen. It's gone now. I'm just going to tell you about it. I can't wait. Kick, they're going back to their old ways. We talked about how they needed to pick up the pace. They weren't quite able to do it last game. This game, they're dropping with Rev Octane.
You know, I was about to ask, are they doing Rev? And I remember they were the one team back in one of the tournaments we casted a few months ago that were running a Rev team, and they were just running at people. It didn't necessarily net wins, but it sure as heck netted KP. And right now they're playing for points no matter what for future weeks. So to see them kind of give a little bit of a throwback, at least in one of the games, we expect to see them in future weeks. We know they're not going to win today, but we do expect them back in future weeks. So getting those points, we'll see if it's a little bit of magic they can bring out here in game number 6.
We'll see how that works out for them, as right now dropping around a Lava City is going to give them like we've talked about, enabling potentially an edge playstyle, especially since the zone isn't pulling towards them. We are getting another place where Kick are going to have a long time to rotate, but at the same time, a lot of the other squads that have been succeeding in southern zones may not have the easiest time. I'm looking at you, Gigi.
I mean, if you're a Rev team, you're probably looking to play more of the edge anyway, so this might be a blessing for them so that they can pick people off on the outside. The difference is that in some of those tournaments, they are a little bit more active, if you will, in the beginning of the game. So if they do want to go, they need to get out there early, because a lot of teams in this style of tournament are much more I guess they're much more persistent to get towards the zone and get that positioning, so those opportunities aren't going to be as abundant as they would in other tournaments. So if they're going to get going, they need to get going soon.
Yeah, we'll take a look very quickly in just a few moments at how far they're going to have to go, not just for first zone, because first zone's pretty close to them, but for second one, because it's also possible that we're getting another Lava Siphon ending. And Lava Siphon was where Borgir found their first win in a pretty cool way, so I want to see if that team can make their return as well. A lot of this narrative that we're spinning up is around Kick, but we got to remember, it's GG, Eternal, 69 IQ. Those are the ones that you're looking at.
Yeah, I think for sure it's a 3-horse race right now. Of course, with 69 IQ getting back-to-back wins, they sit the furthest from first out of those 3 teams. But after their performances last 2 games, they've shown that they have what it takes to make up that distance. And the biggest part for us is watching that kill feed. GG is the one team that, of course, everybody is going to be gunning for, but it's not like the ALGS point format system that you would normally have. This is just accumulative points for today and over the several weeks. So it's not like everybody needs to kill them to be able to keep somebody from winning the game. That's not how this is, but make no mistake about it, there will be teams that know that they're going to be there, and they're trying to limit the amount of points others will get.
Astralis just trying to pump their own points up as much as possible, have been landing Survey this entire day, and Hestia continues to pick up so many kills. I'm pretty sure Hestia is the kill leader right now, despite the fact that we haven't really gotten that many kills on the board. It's only 2. 100% of them are Hestia's.
Yeah, we saw it at the beginning of last game as well. I mean, they were unfortunate they weren't able to recover a banner. I think they let us know that they were upset about that, but they definitely have been popping off here in the early start of the games.
And over at Survey, it's kind of hard to do. I think that part of that has been sort of a blessing in disguise for Astralis. They haven't been being landed on by a team that hasn't yet managed to outduel them. So that 50-50 really looking like a 100% chance. And it's been guaranteed points for them every game. Has really gotten them in a good position, as right now 69 IQ, looking for a little bit better loot, as they always do over by Trials, are going to be undisturbed for now, as their skyhook landing has not been challenged, and now they're looted up and ready to go.
They always come out of here with good loot. It's the southeast zones that they've kind of struggled with. Everything else seems to look good, and as this does pull more towards them, it does put them in a good spot to potentially get more. The problem that you have is when zones pull to you, you're less likely to get activity, or it's going to be harder to generate that activity and generate those kills earlier in the game, because there's going to be so many people moving into those areas. So they have to be very deliberate with how they play. If they're playing to win today, then yeah, they're going to need to get aggressive. If they're playing for points total that they know they can accumulate over 4 weeks, look for a little bit more reserve play and a little bit more of their general style without taking too many risks.
Yeah, I was wondering what style GG we're going to pick right now, as they're pushing in towards Harvester, and it seems like, well, the push will speak for itself. They're going for the more aggressive playstyle right now, running straight through a Caustic Barrel. Sneaky Snitch is going to find a little bit of a fight right now, as it seems like Sabidope has as well. GG have found some good shots with the R99, but do need to play this slow, need to play this controlled, lest they lose a member, which can very snowball into them being taken out of contention entirely.
They closed the door on them. They closed
rough.
the door and they locked in Dope. Nobody's pushing off of it yet, though, but you can see the use of the Valk, tactical, and of course the nades coming down were big. Meanwhile, Kick in the kill feed going down. That's 2 members, potentially all 3. So Kick, one of those teams we were talking about, suffering early defeat. Meanwhile, Odin Gamers eating some grenades here, trying to play behind cover. They're going to be in the truck here, trying to defend with the Caustic, but if more nades come through, this will be very difficult to defend.
It's not the walls that Odin like right now. They prefer a lot more enclosed spaces, a lot more doors to hold, and right now inside of this truck are not in their comfort zone, as they're sitting outside, or rather they're sitting watching the portal from the outside, making sure that nobody's going to take that in before they get themselves back and healed up. Still pretty low on health, quite literally, as Nighty doesn't really have health to speak of, effective health.
You know, this is Odin Gamers really likes to play what they perceive to be center of zone, and there is a couple of circles, one that ends on the train tracks, one that ends just on the bottom of the tracks near this truck. So they're playing for a potential late game ending. They like to play this style, but they do have 1 KP. It's just we haven't seen them do a lot with that positioning. And placements do matter, and if you're looking to get into ALGS, consistently placing is good. You just kind of hope to see that these teams do get a little bit more off of it. Meanwhile, the team sitting at the top, Dia, GG, engaged here at Harvester.
They've managed to get themselves that central zone. It is easily pushable from all sides, but GG likely not going to sit here for long, as they've just got that one doorway between them and potential KP. Morning Stars on the other side of this on a hasty retreat here. They want to play for placement. They are a team that definitely wants to hold on to points for the future, as they're not in contention for a top spot right now and just need to withstand the push, much like Nemesis withstanded Kick's push. Can Morning Stars hold off an aggressive GG?
I mean, GG being really aggressive here. Triple purple armors pushing into it, into a caustic team. This goes to show the nature of GG. They are not afraid to take these fights. Meanwhile, one on the roof is actually going to do some damage. However, it's Dope that's going to be the one taking the most damage between these 6 players. That's going to force kind of a retreat, though. Coming off the roof, though, one more time. About 1 shot there. I believe that was about 90 flesh. Not able to finish that, but these teams continuing to trade shots. But you have to be very careful of the team on top. Jibby looking to throw a grenade, but maybe holding on, throwing the ult, maybe holding on a little bit too long. Lucky not to get knocked there.
There's a lot of damage that comes down, but Morning Stars are able to survive somehow, some way. The damage that was put in from the top, not nearly enough, despite rooftop control being good. Taking an extended engagement, a lot riskier than that. We haven't seen it happen too much, but when you do stick around, when you do get greedy for those kills, you can get punished, and GG know that. That's why they're not pushing Morning Stars even more, despite consistently winning in the trades.
Yeah, I'm really curious on where 69 IQ is right now. We don't see them on their nameplates there, but they are a team that does like to balloon down from that northwest side, and they continue to kind of balloon hop their way down the map. But with that zone already being in around Landslide, wouldn't be surprised if they are somewhere in the vicinity, unless they've already taken that balloon from Harvester and flown in. We'll check in with them soon, but right now it's Morning Stars now. They do have a good defensive position, but they are trying to control the choke while also managing that of GG in the middle of Harvester.
Yeah, fighting their way out right now. I wouldn't be surprised if they wanted to go on a rotation, but the thing is that they can't really, because they're right at the edge of zone. It's the perfect spot.
69 IQ is circling the wagons. They balloon hopped all the way down the southwest side and now have come all the way down from trees. So they're going to be looking to play from the south end. They actually have somebody right here, unexpected.
Wow. All right, that's going to be nice.
That's accent there going down. So getting a free knock. I didn't see whether they thirsted it yet or not. Nope.
Haven't taken it just quite yet. AAS now missing that member, though the fact that he was on flesh as they rounded the corner, really deadly right there. And right now, AAS don't seem like they're going to be able to hold out too well, as 2v3 is already difficult. And this charge rifle is going to have to put in some miracle shots to withstand this.
They've got a charged up Rampage, which at least in theory puts a little bit of fear into somebody. It's an aggressive portal. They're trying to get them out of there. That is bold. They're going to get ulted off of that, but that's just going to enable the push here from 69 IQ, who's in full pursuit. They need the KP. Looks like they're going to be held out a little bit. Looks like Smeggy not able to move forward with them, instead have to get cover, so that is no KP now for 69 IQ. They could still re-engage here, but a nice recovery here by AAS.
Really impressive stuff there. Actually being able to get the res inside of the dome, no less, was a really smart move for the reduced animation time that Gibby does get within that dome. Speaking of domes, we're getting even more as GG are on another aggressive push inside Harvester. This time they end up getting a knock, and it is onto Morning Stars again. Sooner or later, GG is coming for you. The question is, was it a little bit too late? Because right now, their health bars are low and they've got nowhere to go.
Dope is one tick away. They had to play around that gas. Remember, this is our first place team, so this is very tense moments for them. They cannot afford to go out early. It opens the door, not a little bit, but it blows the door wide open for both Eternal and 69 IQ to take that first place. They have a somewhat comfortable lead, most would say, but they are not out of the woods yet. There are still 18 teams here.
Yeah, that kill is going to make you slightly happier, but like you say, it's going to be as much as GG are trying to stay alive. Eternal and 69 IQ constantly watching that kill feed for the hope that will come up if a member of GG does fall. They know him at this point. They've seen him before, and now they've just got to wait for one of them to fall. And I think that it's not just them, but likely a lot of other members in this lobby that are going, let's just take down GG because they're in the top spot. We have the most to gain from losing them. Morning Stars backing away right now. Aren't going to eat that Valkyrie cube, but are going to lay down the damage from this Caustic as Mox really lays down the hurt with the R301.
These members that keep getting caught standing still make me wonder how much. I mean, I'm like, this isn't Call of Duty. We're not cooking nades here. So they're definitely trying to find ways to get that, trying to get onto the height, try and regroup. They are a duo, so just trying to take a straight up fight is not in their best interest. Also, as I take a look at the minimap, that truck that we saw for Team Like Gamers Origin, it is pulling more towards Lava Siphon. So that is a way for these teams to kind of figure out how they're going to go in, as a lot of the Lava Siphon buildings now, there are multiple levels to this, top floor, or in the middle, and on the bottom, a lot of room for people to move in. Meanwhile, Old is Forever gets knocked, and that's going to be Eternal now. Eternal is the team that's getting engaged on. Bear Claw, they're trying to go in, but they're actually going to get shot on their way in. So Eternal really trying to survive here. Nades aplenty. Oh my goodness, everybody's just collapsing.
Odin are fighting over this again as well. They come in from the side here and lay down the caustic gas as well. They should be able to pull this one back, and just on the outside, around the peripheries of everybody, Odin are able to clean up once more.
That is Eternal, I believe, that is out now. So that is going to be our second place team not able to take first place. That is a sight to see for GG. And it's up to 69 IQ, the only team, I believe, in realistic striking distance. Unless one of these teams that was sitting on 40 to 41 points, there was about 4 of them, they would have to get a lot of KP and a first place finish, and for GG to go out early. The only team that realistically is close is going to be 69 IQ, but we do have eyes right here on GG that they are here and they are still in the game.
Yeah, Nemesis and Red Dragon do pull up those next 2 spots. 69 IQ at 47, Nemesis and Red Dragon both tied at 41 points. And if they can get themselves a ridiculous game, if they can have a pop-off performance in the end game, they can take this. And that's a possibility that we would be remiss not to talk about, because there have been some crazy things that happen in Apex Legends where a 5th place team out of nowhere will be able to clutch the win. And just putting that on the radar, the Nemesis and Red Dragon are also people that are relieved to see Eternal falling.
Everybody that steadily sees their way out, it can change the way that you play the rest of the game. I mean, for GG, if they see 69 IQ go out, I mean, they can pretty much just play for placements and they should be good. I mean, that is their strategy, is try and get some KP. They've got one, but don't die. I mean, that is their number one goal. I'm pretty sure it's the goal for everybody. Don't die, but you can be a little bit more defensive in your approach, and I think that's what they're going for right now. And here's the zone closing. Where will it pull? And that is going to pull really far south, meaning that there is not a lot of cover for these teams. The southern buildings, of course, but Lava Siphon is going to get choked off real hard.
Red Dragon for right now, holding up here in Lava Siphon, do have a relatively comfortable position as they pushed forward towards that central building. Red Dragon going to be potentially irritated by this, but there's still plenty of real estate to be held. And that's the really nice thing about Lava Siphon zones, is that there is actually a lot of room for teams to all group up, and the pushes just have to be smart. They cannot be, well, we all have to move anyway, so I guess we're going to fight now. The one thing that'll change that is this next zone. Look at the minimap. 1 minute left until Lava Siphon is almost all but excluded from the ring.
Well, GG's... Oh,
that's a stick?
Okay,
that's a stick? That's not a stick.
Oh my goodness. That is massive. GG in all kinds of trouble all of a sudden. It looked like a stick, and then they didn't play like it was a stick, and that's GG out, opening the door now for 69 IQ and some other teams. That is a massive, massive loss. They stepped out, tried to use the Jibby ult to get them off. They were being shot. They were going to use that to rotate in, but a massive arc star comes through and completely changes this entire game.
Huge plays. I was sitting there confused out of my mind, but you turn around, you see that arc star on the floor, and you sweat buckets as GG, because right now, your fate is in the hands of 69 IQ all the way up here in this high ground. Look at the spot that they have. It is one of the best spots in this next ring, and they are in position to take this game, to take the lead, and to qualify for Pro League.
I mean, they don't even need a first place kill so long, or a first place finish, so long as they pick up some KP, but rest assured, being down, what was it, 13 points going into this, 12 points? They need a first place finish, and they just a little bit of KP. And if they do this, this is back-to-back-to-back wins. 69 IQ can do this without a first place finish, but they need to pick up KP. However, they are in position, as you said, they are in almost the most dominant position. There's nobody that can come behind them. They have the high ground. They have the sight lines. They are in a pristine location to secure their spot into ALGS.
It's really, really good for them, and as the zone closes, we're going to see a lot of kills showing up right now. 11 squads remain, and AAS is pushing up onto Odin, who have held this cart against all odds this entire game. Alpha Draft is going to take the reset there, and 69 IQ, they're looking down, just seeing if they can get some kills off of this as well, putting the pressure onto Odin, throwing those arc stars in. 69 IQ, so happy right now just to sit back and let havoc be wreaked.
I mean, 69 IQ has the corner of that building that they're in. There's boxes, and there's like a little outing that has another box on it. They are going to be able to go there, so they can hold these teams on the left. They want these teams at truck to fight so that they can snipe away some KP, but also eliminate the threat. Their biggest threat is from this left side, so it's up to them to play patient. There's the little ledge that they have, the box. There's one on the wall on the right and one on that ledge right there. Both of those are going to be in, and that is where they can play to manufacture placements. We are already down to 9 teams, so it is all about 69 IQ and whether they can finish this out and secure their spot. They are in position to do just that.
They're crossing their I's and dotting their T's as well, watching those out-of-bounds plays that can come from above them. 69 IQ cannot be caught off guard. 9 squads remain, and Jinxie, he's looking out as well. He knows that the Valkyrie squads can come from behind them. Odin, surviving still inside of this truck against all odds, have kept themselves in the game, and they got a Spitfire to boot to keep them up to tip-top shape inside of this whenever they get pushed.
Round 5 is closing. All hell is about to break loose, and everything comes down to right now for these teams. There is almost no cover. There is this wall, but everybody's going to be here playing under the stairs. You are going to be met with resistance. The Eva shot's coming out. That's going to be Tyler getting the knock there. Actually, who knows? There's so much chaos going on here. Meanwhile, 69 has a perfect spectator view. They're going to be trying to shoot down shots. They need the KP for this.
That's
Placements
1 kill.
Are great. KP is even better.
2
and they
kills.
are trying to pick that up now as they continue to pepper away these shots. And look at this view here, Dia.
They've already picked up 2 kills off of the chaos that is unfolding in front of them. It's exactly what they need right now. AAS, they end up dropping as well. We're down to 4 squads. And 69 IQ still have a lot of ground to cover, but they are so ridiculously close. They need this first place finish. They need at least 1 more kill, but it is so... It's not even possible. It's likely, J-How.
Yeah, there's caustic teams galore. You can see the traps, and they are pulling towards the building that is being held by a caustic team. So that team inside, unless a team is able to go crazy on that, there's one team playing the low ground, which is Bear Claw on the right side. But it's the team on the bottom left. That's going to be the team that has the worst spot. And for 69 IQ, it's hard to really engage on either of these. So it's going to be tough to generate that KP. So 69 IQ, they're going to get shots, they're going to get damage, but that number beside the damage, it doesn't exist. They're very short on KP, but there's going to be some extra help coming in from Top Dogs.
Two teams that have struggled to find themselves wins today, or even three actually, as Top Dogs do end up taking the engage. They wipe us down to 3 squads. Hestia was taken on Astralis. Also holding up here is going to be the next Caustic squad in front of them. Top Dogs move their way up to 3rd place. This is their best performance today. But now they just need to finalize this one. Astralis and Top Dogs hungry for that spot, but 69 IQ know that they have to take it. Know that if they want their spot in Pro League, they need it now more than ever.
They're going to try and play the head peek around that staircase. That's going to be their best point of entry, but it is a caustic team. Meanwhile, you can see Hestia taking a lot of damage. Slayers has to move up. They have some boxes to play on. They have some head peeks. It's up to 69 IQ to move in here to try and take this to secure their spot to ALGS.
They need to wipe 1 full squad as well as get that win. It's so close to being possible. Top Dogs, they end up coming in from above and taking the engagement with Astralis right now. They can't afford to lose a single member as Mimu ends up dropping down to Flesh. The bubble goes down in this corner. Do Top Dogs have a good spot right now? Because it looks awful, but it's so hard to push.
They have the ult, they have the caustic ult. That's going to be the deciding factor here. The bubble on the right is about to expire. This is it. 69 IQ is going to try and hold that. They're also trying to get some knocks. They do get the knocks there. They're down to 2nd place. It's going to be a 1v1 here. Top Dogs versus 69 IQ.
They got the nades.
69 IQ trying to hold the door, trying to keep them from coming out, but out comes the bubble. 69 IQ. Arcstar goes down.
It's now or never.
Comes the push. 69 IQ loses 1 member. Top Dogs
they lose
trying
two.
to be the one to fight it. Slayers is the last hope. He has the clutch here. He has the shots. Plays behind the shields. 69 IQ has done it. They have secured the 1st place finish and likely their spot in the ALGS.
Oh, make no mistake. That has got to be a 1st place placement. We've got to check with Gigi. We've got to make sure that our math is correct because the margins are thin as they have ever been, but we may have just seen we've seen one of the most clutch performances that I've seen in Apex already. The question is whether it actually ended up paying off for him.
Back to back to back. And if you secure your spot in ALGS with 3 wins in a row, granted, they're not an invited team, so they have to fight their way in. If you get in off of that, that is legendary status right there. My God, the fact that they had to do it, not that they needed to do it, but they had to do it. They don't want points. This was their spot. That is absolutely insane on every level of Apex competitive.
And it came down to the wire in a way that I didn't expect, because I was hoping that they'd pick up 3 kills earlier and maybe they could wipe another squad and be able to land in 2nd or 3rd and still be able to qualify off the points. But as the game ticked on, it became evident that the only way that they were going to be able to even get close to matching Gigi was to take the win. And that is a very high pressure situation that I know I would crumble under. And after 3 whole days of playing Apex Legends, I'm surprised that 69 IQ could withstand.
I mean, I thought, was yesterday a fluke? Did they just like luck out yesterday? 2 1st place finishes, 2 2nd place finishes yesterday out of 6 games, had the most points of both lobbies in the semifinals. They come in today, drop goose eggs, had 4 points after 2 games, 3 games looked really rough. We'll see you next week. They said, hold on a second. Yeah. We're going to get a win. We're going to put ourselves at least in some points. 2nd game they win, game number 5. It's like, all right, well, now you've got me interested. There's no way this works, right? Last game of the day. You have to win. You have to get KP. And they clutched up on an epic level. Just truly insane, man. You couldn't write this, man. This doesn't normally happen. This is unbelievable.
Yeah, and it's a situation like this where it is so insanely difficult to keep your head about you as well, because you come into the third game and the pressure. You're keeping your eyes on the kill feed, and you're seeing this slowly come to a head. I mean, when Gigi was wiped out, I was sitting there in shock. Thank God that you were there, because I couldn't believe what was happening in front of me. And I'm sure 69 IQ, they must have felt the same way. They were like, wait a minute, all of a sudden our biggest problem is gone. And I mean, props to all of the teams that managed to show up big today. And let's not forget that no matter who ends up winning, though I'm pretty sure it's 69 IQ, that you will still have all these points to lean back on once qualifiers are over.
Yeah. I mean, 16 teams. So you have the winner of each 4 weeks that you have. Those get automatic qualifiers into ALGS. But if you play every Monday and you get points every Monday, the idea is you're going to get cumulative points that can qualify you as one of those 16 teams that gets in beyond those 4.
I got a present for you, J-How, and I got a present for all of you guys at home. The stats have been finished. Let's take a look.
Oh,
all right.
My goodness.
Okay, Astralis, they ended up getting the most points. 11 kills is big. 69 IQ, 8 kills, 20 points. I don't even want to do the math. Just show me the top, because this is close.
I feel like I already know what's coming.
I mean, if they got 8 kills, they got 20 points.
They got 20
12?
points. I put them at like 40 or 67 or 68.
Yeah, and Gigi only got 3 points. The difference needed to be 13 points. Gigi 17. So they clinched first place theoretically by 4 points, and there it is. Holy moly!
Oh my god! Back to back to back to secure your spot in the ALGS. You couldn't have put your back any harder against the wall through 3 games, and you couldn't have fought your way back any better than 69 IQ did in the last 3 games to surpass GG. But major shout outs to Astralis, who came in. They had a lot of KP today that gave them a lot of points on the board. Nemesis, Eternal, a consistent performer, but GG, the last few games didn't quite have their performances. And 69 IQ, I mean, I don't think anybody expects having that big of a lead and having somebody come in to win 3 games in a row to take over the #1 spot. But what an impressive performance here today.
Definitely starstruck coming out of today's performances, because for our first round of qualifiers, we talked about it. We were getting the cream of the crop, the teams that should have been invited, but a lot of those household names also didn't make it. And that is the most surprising thing. I mean, 69 IQ, you know them if you've been around, but I think that I speak for myself here. They weren't a team that I would have classified as a favorite had I not seen the semifinals, and even halfway through the day wouldn't have believed it. So just the amount of high level Apex that we've gotten, the amount of, like we were talking about, very slim margins that took us from game to game, make for a volatility that you couldn't write any better.
For day 1 to go as well as it did, for the diversity in the zones, from the play of these teams, the consistency of these teams. I mean, a lot of these teams put up a lot of points today, regardless of who got first. So, I mean, you got to see some pretty quality games today. We have 3 more weeks, of course, to do it. And to get 19 other teams in, 16 qualified through points, 3 winners to go through. There's the fact that we started off today in EU, EMEA, and we still have NA to go later today, by the way. It was fantastic start of the day.
I was going to say, guys, if you enjoyed this, we've got presents for you, because in 4.5 hours, we should be streaming NA's PQs as well. So we're going to get the chance to see how Benchwarmers stack up to the rest of the squads after a convincing semis, and get the chance to nominate our own team there in Pro League. But for EMEA, 69 IQ, they have put on a stellar performance, and I can't wait to see how they perform in Pro League. We'll see you guys later.